Welcome back to Lore 2 RPG, where we dive deep into gaming's greatest stories. Today, we journey into the maddening depths of the Lands Between to explore one of Elden Ring's most chaotic and terrifying forces, the Lord of Frenzied Flame. Over the next few hours, we'll uncover the twisted origins of the Frenzied Flame, the tragic tales of those who sought its power, and the apocalyptic ending that awaits those who embrace the Three Fingers. We'll explore how the shadow of the Erdtree DLC has expanded our understanding of this destructive force, from the failed Lord Midra to the ancient inquisitions that sought to contain the flame. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin this epic adventure into madness, chaos, and the yellow flame that seeks to melt away all that divides and distinguishes. Chapter 1. The Nature of the Frenzied Flame. Deep beneath the capital city of Leyndell, in the fetid depths of the subterranean shunning grounds, lies one of the most terrifying entities in all of Elden Ring's vast mythology. The Three Fingers, an aberrant deity that serves as the polar opposite to the two fingers of the greater will, waits in eternal patience for those brave or foolish enough to seek its terrible blessing. But to understand the true horror of what lies in those depths, we must first understand the nature of the Frenzied Flame itself. The Frenzied Flame is described as pure chaos incarnate, an unrelenting force that seeks to destroy all life and melt everything into one primordial state. Unlike the other outer gods that seek dominion or influence over the Lands Between, the Frenzied Flame has a singular, apocalyptic purpose to incinerate all that divides and distinguishes, returning the world to a state of primordial unity through complete annihilation. This yellow flame manifests in the eyes of those stricken by maddening grief and suffering, slowly consuming their sanity and individuality. Those deeply afflicted develop an insatiable need to spread its influence further, becoming what some call chaos followers. They yearn for the arrival of their Lord, the one who will finally achieve what they could not, the complete immolation of the world. What makes the Frenzied Flame particularly insidious is its ability to spread like a contagion. The flame appears to feed on suffering and despair, growing stronger in sites of great trauma and anguish. It can be transmitted through magical means, by consuming the plucked eyes of those afflicted, or simply through proximity to its influence. The flame is feared not just for its destructive power, but for its ability to destroy individuality itself, capable of melting away even eternal spirits. The shadow of the Erdtree DLC has revealed that the Frenzied Flame has a particular relationship with spirits and the incorporeal. As we learn from various item descriptions in the expansion, spirits are eternal, yet the Frenzied Flame melts them away regardless. This explains why Torrent, our spectral steed, refuses to be summoned in the abyssal woods, where the influence of the flame runs deep. Even the eternal are not safe from its consuming madness. The flame's ability to blend minds together was perhaps more apparent in earlier versions of the game's development. The Brotherhood of nomadic merchants throughout the world mention their fear of sleep, as they feel their minds would rapidly blend together while unconscious. This collective consciousness aspect of the flame hints at its ultimate goal: the dissolution of all individual identity into a singular chaotic mass. In a cruel twist of fate, attempts to suppress or punish followers of the Frenzied Flame only serve to strengthen it. The fear and persecution that the world shows toward the flame has only supported its growth, as any attempt to quell it through punishment and subjugation intensifies the suffering of its subjects, allowing the flame to fester more deeply into its hosts and become more powerful and widespread. The Frenzied Flame operates through what can only be described as a twisted form of salvation. To its followers, the flame offers an end to all suffering through the complete elimination of existence itself. It's a nihilistic philosophy taken to its ultimate extreme, If all life brings suffering, then the only true mercy is to end all life. This makes it perhaps the most terrifying of all the outer gods, as its victory would mean not conquest or subjugation, but absolute nothingness. Understanding the Frenzied Flame requires us to see it not as evil in the traditional sense, but as a force beyond morality entirely. It represents the ultimate expression of despair, the final refuge of those who have suffered so greatly that they see annihilation as preferable to existence. This philosophical underpinning makes the flame's influence all the more tragic, as it preys upon those who are already broken and offers them a terrible form of peace. As we delve deeper into the lore of the Lord of Frenzied Flame, we'll see how this cosmic force of destruction has touched countless lives throughout the history of the lands between, from ancient merchants buried alive for their beliefs to failed lords who couldn't bear the weight of the flame's expectations. Each story adds another layer to our understanding of this yellow flame that promises to burn away, not just the world, but the very concept of individual existence itself. Chapter 2: The Origins of Madness, Shabriri, the First Herald. To understand the Lord of Frenzied Flame, we must first examine the man who brought this cosmic horror into the world of the lands between. Shabriri, described as the most reviled man in all history, stands as the apparent origin point for the sickness of the Frenzied Flame. His story is one of punishment, transformation, and the birth of a force that would threaten the very foundations of reality. The historical Shabriri was punished for the crime of slander, having his eyes gouged out as retribution for his deceptive words. But where others might have learned humility from such brutal justice, Shabriri's nature remained unchanged. His deceptive expression persisted even after his mutilation, suggesting that his capacity for lies and manipulation ran deeper than mere physical sight. It was into these empty eye sockets that the blight of the Frenzied Flame first took root. Whether the flame was drawn to Shabriri's inherent nature, or whether his suffering created the perfect vessel for its manifestation, remains unclear. What we do know is that from this moment, Shabriri became something more than human, transformed into a conduit for chaos itself. The shadow of the Erdtree expansion has added fascinating new dimensions to Shabriri's story. Deep in the abyssal woods, in Midra's manse, we find clues that suggest a possible connection between Shabriri and the failed Lord of Frenzied Flame, Midra. A painting within the manse shows Midra with his wife, Nanaya, her hand draped across her belly in a way that suggests pregnancy. Could the child born of this union have been Shabriri himself? The evidence is circumstantial, but compelling. Nanaya's torch, found within the manse, bears an intriguing description. A torch made by attaching a dying flame of frenzy to a small spinal column. In a distant land, in an age-long past, was born a man who failed to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. All that remains of him is cradled gently by Nanaya. This description could very well refer to Shabriri as the child of Midra and Nanaya, born in the realm of shadow during an earlier age when the Frenzied Flame first began to manifest. If this theory holds true, it would explain much about Shabriri's nature and abilities. As the offspring of a failed Lord of Frenzied Flame, he would possess an inherent connection to the Yellow Flame, explaining how he became its first herald in the lands between. The torch's reference to all that remains of him being cradled by Nanaya could represent Shabriri's essence or soul, preserved by his mother's love, even as his physical form was transformed by the flame. What makes Shabriri particularly dangerous is his ability to persist beyond death. Through unknown means, granted by the Frenzied Flame, Shabriri can inhabit the bodies of others, making them his vessels. This is how we encounter him in the game, wearing the face of the deceased bloody finger hunter Yura. The fact that Shabriri covers his eyes while inhabiting Yura's body is likely because those eye sockets no longer contain eyes, but the burning flame of frenzy itself. Shabriri's role as Herald of the Flame extends beyond mere evangelism. He serves as a recruiter, seeking out potential candidates who might succeed where others have failed in becoming the Lord of Frenzied Flame. His methods are insidious, preying on the love and compassion of his targets. When he encounters the tarnished player character, he doesn't appeal to their ambition or power lust, but to their desire to save Melina from her sacrificial fate. This manipulation reveals Shabriri's deep understanding of human nature. He knows that those capable of bearing the Frenzied Flame are often those with the greatest capacity for love and sacrifice. The flame doesn't typically choose the cruel or the heartless. It chooses those who suffer deeply, often because they care deeply. This makes Shabriri's recruitment all the more tragic, as he turns virtue into a pathway to damnation. The name Shabriri itself carries significance beyond the world of Elden Ring. In Jewish folklore, Shabriri is a demon of blindness who dwells in uncovered water at night, blinding those who drink from it. This mythological connection reinforces the themes of sight, blindness, and revelation that run throughout the Frenzied Flame's lore. Shabriri offers a kind of terrible sight to those who embrace the flame, showing them the futility of existence while simultaneously blinding them to any alternative. Shabriri's persistence throughout history suggests that the Frenzied Flame has been a constant threat to the stability of the world. He was present to influence Vyke, the Tarnished who came closest to becoming Elden Lord before the player character. He was likely involved in the corruption of the Great Caravan, the nomadic merchants who were buried alive and subsequently summoned the flame in their despair. His influence can be felt in every major manifestation of the Frenzied Flame throughout the ages. What makes Shabriri's story particularly compelling is that he represents the transformation of suffering into malevolence. His punishment for slander created the perfect vessel for a force that would threaten all existence. In a way, those who gouged out his eyes for his crimes bear some responsibility for unleashing the Frenzied Flame upon the world. Their attempt to stop his lies with violence only created something far worse, a herald of apocalypse itself. The shadow of the Erdtree has also revealed the existence of items like the Swollen Grape, which appears to be a matured version of the Shabriri grapes found in the base game. This suggests that the influence of the Frenzied Flame has been growing and evolving over time, with Shabriri's original corruption serving as the seed from which greater horrors would eventually bloom. As we continue our exploration of the Lord of Frenzied Flame, we'll see how Shabriri's initial corruption set in motion, a chain of events that would span centuries, affecting everyone from humble merchants to would-be gods. His transformation from a simple slanderer into a herald of cosmic destruction serves as a warning about the price of both cruelty and despair, showing how the cycles of punishment and suffering can give birth to forces beyond anyone's control. Chapter 3. The Great Caravan's Curse, the Merchant's Tragedy. One of the most tragic and foundational stories in the Frenzied Flame's history involves the Great Caravan, a nomadic group of merchants whose persecution would directly lead to one of the most significant manifestations of the Yellow Flame in the lands between. Their story reveals how the fear and intolerance of those in power can create the very evil they seek to prevent. The Great Caravan was a thriving community of nomadic merchants who traveled the lands in peaceful trade. These merchants, identifiable by their colorful finery decorated with tiny gems in a wide spectrum of colors, represented a different way of life from the settled populations of the lands between. They lived freely, moving from place to place, carrying goods and knowledge across vast distances. However, their nomadic lifestyle and different customs eventually drew suspicion from the established order. The merchants were accused of heretical beliefs, though the exact nature of these supposed heresies remains unclear. Whether their crime was worshipping different gods, following different customs, or simply existing outside the accepted social order, the result was the same: a campaign of persecution that would have apocalyptic consequences. The punishment inflicted upon the Great Caravan was as brutal as it was complete. The entire clan was rounded up and buried alive deep underground. in what would later become known as the Cathedral of the Forsaken beneath Leyndell. This wasn't simply execution. It was a deliberate attempt to erase the merchants from history entirely, to make them disappear without trace or memory. But the persecutors had underestimated the power of collective despair and the will to vengeance. Trapped in their underground tomb, facing slow death by suffocation and starvation, the merchants of the Great Caravan did something unprecedented. They chanted a curse of despair and collectively summoned the Frenzied Flame. Their combined anguish and desire for revenge created a beacon that drew the attention of cosmic forces beyond the material world. This mass summoning was perhaps the most significant manifestation of the Frenzied Flame in the recorded history of the Lands Between. The sheer number of people involved, their collective suffering, and their unified desire for the destruction of those who had wronged them created a psychic resonance that tore through the barriers between the material world and the realm of outer gods. The consequences of this summoning can still be felt when players explore the subterranean shunning grounds. The area is littered with the corpses and remnants of the buried merchants, their bodies transformed by centuries of exposure to the Frenzied Flame. Some have become little more than husks that attack with frenzy-infused magic, while others exist as living instruments, endlessly playing their melancholy melodies as if their music could somehow call back their lost civilization. The few merchants who survived the initial burial and the subsequent exposure to the Frenzied Flame carry the trauma of their people's genocide. Those nomadic merchants encountered throughout the Lands Between are the descendants or survivors of the Great Caravan, forced to wander not by choice, but by the curse that befell their people. They fear sleep because their dreams connect them to the collective consciousness of their buried kin, threatening to drag them into the same madness that consumed those below. This connection between the merchants and the Frenzied Flame was apparently meant to be explored more thoroughly in the original game. Cut content suggests there was once a questline involving the merchant Kale, who would have tasked the player with discovering the fate of the Great Caravan. This quest would have provided direct confirmation of the connection between the merchant's persecution and the birth of the Frenzied Flame, though its removal from the final game leaves the connection to be inferred from environmental storytelling and item descriptions. The Great Caravan story serves as a perfect example of how the Frenzied Flame feeds on injustice and suffering. The merchants were not inherently evil or chaotic. They were simply different, following their own customs and beliefs. Their transformation into agents of apocalyptic destruction was a direct result of the cruelty inflicted upon them by those who feared their differences. This tragedy also illustrates the cyclical nature of the Frenzied Flame's influence. The fear that led to the merchants' persecution was likely justified by their accusers as necessary for maintaining order and protecting society. Yet this very act of persecution created a far greater threat than any heretical beliefs could have posed. The attempt to eliminate a perceived danger only succeeded in manifesting a real one. The merchant's curse demonstrates the collective power of the Frenzied Flame. While individual manifestations of the flame are dangerous enough, the combined will of an entire people calling for vengeance created something unprecedented in its scope and power. The flame that emerged from their mass summoning was strong enough to persist for centuries, eventually growing into the force that would threaten the entire world. The location of their burial, deep beneath the capital city, also speaks to the shame felt by those who ordered their execution. The merchants weren't simply killed and forgotten. They were hidden away in the deepest, most forgotten corners of the world, as if their persecutors knew on some level that their actions were wrong. This attempt to hide the evidence of their crime only ensured that the consequences would be even more devastating when they finally emerged. The instruments played by the surviving merchant remnants carry particular significance. Music has always been associated with memory and cultural preservation, and the endless melodies echoing through the Cathedral of the Forsaken serve as an eternal lament for the Great Caravan's lost civilization. These songs are simultaneously beautiful and heartbreaking, a reminder of what was lost and a constant call for the vengeance that has yet to be fully realized. The Great Caravan story also connects to the broader themes of marginalization and persecution that run throughout Elden Ring's narrative. From the omens locked away in the sewers to the misbegotten enslaved and tortured, the world of the lands between is filled with examples of how fear of the different and unknown leads to cycles of violence and retribution. The merchants represent perhaps the most extreme example of how such persecution can backfire, creating enemies far more dangerous than any the persecutors originally feared. As we continue to explore the manifestations of the Frenzied Flame, the Great Caravan's curse serves as a foundational tragedy that explains much about how the flame operates and spreads. Their collective summoning created the psychic infrastructure that would allow future manifestations of the flame to take root, turning the very foundations of Leyndell into a breeding ground for chaos and madness. Chapter 4. The Knight's Folly, Vyke's Failed Ascension. Among all the tragic figures touched by the Frenzied Flame, perhaps none is more poignant than festering fingerprint Vyke, the Tarnished who came closer than any other to claiming the throne of the Elden Lord before the player's arrival. His story serves as both a warning and a mirror, showing us what might have been and what could still come to pass for any who walk the path toward a lordship. Vyke was no ordinary Tarnished. By all accounts, he was exceptional among his peers, possessing both the strength and determination necessary to gather the great runes and challenge the demigods. He had proven himself in combat against some of the mightiest beings in the lands between, collecting the power necessary to approach the Erdtree and claim his destiny as Elden Lord. No other Tarnished had come so close to achieving what seemed impossible, but Vyke's greatest strength proved to be his greatest weakness, his capacity for love and compassion. As he approached the final stages of his journey, he learned the terrible truth that had been hidden from him throughout his quest. To burn the Erdtree and enter its inner sanctum, he would need to sacrifice his finger maiden at the Forge of the Giants. The very person who had guided him, supported him, and believed in him would have to die for his ambition to be realized. This revelation shattered something fundamental in Vyke's psyche. Unlike other Tarnished who might have grimly accepted the necessity of the sacrifice, Vyke couldn't bear the thought of his maiden's death. His love for her, the very quality that made him worthy of lordship in the first place, became the thing that made him unable to claim it through the traditional path. It was in this moment of desperation and anguish that Shabriri found his opening. The herald of the Frenzied Flame appeared to Vyke, whether in person or through dreams and visions, and offered him an alternative. There was another way to claim lordship, Shabriri whispered, a path that would spare his maiden's life, while still granting him the power he sought. All he had to do was descend beneath the capital and seek the blessing of the Three Fingers. The tragic irony of Vyke's choice is that he made it out of love, the same emotion that should have protected him from the Frenzied Flame's influence. But love, when combined with desperation and despair, can become a pathway to darkness just as easily as to light. Vyke's willingness to sacrifice anything to save his maiden made him the perfect candidate for the Three Fingers' terrible gift. When Vyke descended into the subterranean shunning grounds and came face to face with the Three Fingers, he was transformed by the encounter. The fingerprints of the alien entity burned themselves permanently into his armor, leaving marks that would never fade. More importantly, his mind was forever stained by the flame, filling him with the maddening vision of a world reduced to primordial chaos. But Vyke's transformation was incomplete. Despite bearing the mark of the Three Fingers and carrying the Frenzied Flame within him, he failed to become a true Lord of Frenzied Flame. Whether this was due to his own resistance to the flame's influence, his continued love for his maiden, or simply his inability to fully embrace the nihilistic philosophy of chaos, Vyke fell short of the flame's ultimate expectations. This failure left Vyke in a state of existential limbo. He was no longer fully human, having been marked by cosmic forces beyond mortal comprehension. But neither was he the agent of apocalypse that the Frenzied Flame required. The flame continued to burn within him, driving him to madness, while simultaneously denying him the release that complete transformation might have brought. Vyke's incomplete transformation manifested in his behavior after his encounter with the Three Fingers. He became an invader, appearing in the worlds of other Tarnished to engage in combat that seemed to serve no purpose beyond violence itself. This random aggression can be understood as the flame's influence driving him to spread chaos and suffering, even though he lacked the power or will to achieve the flame's ultimate goals. The location where players can encounter Vyke in single combat is particularly significant. The Church of Inhibition, a structure dedicated to suppressing or controlling the Frenzied Flame's influence. His presence there suggests that some part of him was still fighting against the flame's control, seeking some form of restraint or cure for his condition. The Church's giant flame eye, which can inflict madness on any who look upon it, serves as both a reminder of what Vyke has become and a symbol of what he might yet become if the flame's influence continues to grow. The community surrounding the Church of Inhibition, including the Frenzied Flame village, appears to have formed around Vyke's presence. The villagers speak of him with a mixture of reverence and disappointment, recognizing his connection to the flame while also mocking his failure to achieve true lordship. This community of flame-touched individuals represents what happens when the Frenzied Flame spreads through a population without a true lord to guide and focus its power. Vyke's armor and weapons tell their own story of his transformation. The fingerprint marks burned into his armor serve as permanent reminders of his encounter with the Three Fingers, while his lance shows signs of the flame's influence in its corrupted appearance and special abilities. These items, when obtained by the player, carry some of the flame's power, suggesting that Vyke's failure has not entirely extinguished the force within him. The tragedy of Vyke's story extends beyond his personal fall from grace. His failure represents a cautionary tale about the price of compassion in a world that demands sacrifice. The very qualities that made him worthy of lordship, his love and unwillingness to see others suffer, were turned against him by forces that recognize these traits as weaknesses to be exploited. Vyke's story also serves as a direct parallel to the player character's journey. Both are tarnished, seeking to become Elden Lord. Both must face the choice of sacrificing their maiden, and both encounter Shabriri's temptation at the crucial moment. The difference lies in the player's ability to see Vyke's fate and learn from his mistake, though the temptation to follow the same path remains strong. The presence of Vyke's spirit ash in the game allows players to summon a version of him that retains his original nobility and strength before his corruption by the Frenzied Flame. This serves as a reminder of what was lost when he made his fateful choice, showing the noble warrior he could have remained, if not for the cruel circumstances that led him to desperation. Perhaps most tragically, Vyke's sacrifice of his own sanity and humanity appears to have been meaningless. There's no indication that his maiden was actually saved by his actions, suggesting that Shabriri's promises were as empty as all his other lies. Vyke gave up everything based on false hope, making his fall all the more heartbreaking and senseless. As we examine Vyke's failed ascension, we see reflected many of the themes that define the Frenzied Flame's influence: the corruption of virtue into vice, the transformation of love into madness, and the way that desperation can make even the noblest souls vulnerable to cosmic horrors. His story stands as perhaps the most personal and relatable of all the Flame's tragedies, showing how easily any of us might fall when faced with impossible choices and false promises of salvation. Chapter 5. The Abyssal Woods and Midra's Torment. The shadow of the Erdtree expansion brought with it one of the most haunting and terrifying locations in all of From Software's catalogue: the Abyssal Woods. This realm of perpetual twilight and maddening influence serves as the domain of the Frenzied Flame within the realm of shadow, and at its heart lies the tragic figure of Midra, a man who endured suffering beyond comprehension in his failed attempt to become a Lord of Frenzied Flame. The Abyssal Woods themselves represent a fundamental shift in how the game presents the Frenzied Flame's influence. Unlike the isolated pockets of madness found in the base game, here we see an entire ecosystem transformed by the yellow flame's presence. The very air is thick with the threat of madness, and even Torrent, our faithful spectral steed, refuses to manifest in this cursed place. The woods demonstrate what happens when the Frenzied Flame is allowed to take root and spread unchecked across a landscape. The trees that give the woods their name are not merely dead or dying, they have been fundamentally transformed by the flame's influence. Their twisted forms and unnatural coloration speak to a corruption that goes deeper than mere physical decay. These are trees that have been touched by cosmic forces beyond the natural world, their very essence rewritten by exposure to chaos itself. Moving through the Abyssal Woods requires a level of stealth and caution rarely demanded elsewhere in Elden Ring. The aging untouchables that patrol these paths represent one of the most unique and terrifying enemy types in the entire game. These mysterious beings, with their grape-like heads and ancient, shuffling movements, can only be harmed through precise parrying techniques. Their immunity to conventional attacks forces players to engage with them on their own terms, creating an atmosphere of helplessness and vulnerability that perfectly captures the horror of the Frenzied Flame's influence. The lore surrounding the aging untouchables reveals their connection to the broader story of the Frenzied Flame. According to diary pages found throughout the woods, these creatures were once part of an inquisition dedicated to hunting down and eliminating those touched by the flame. The irony of their current state, transformed into the very thing they once sought to destroy, speaks to the futile nature of attempting to combat the Frenzied Flame through violence and persecution. The process of their transformation is described in fragmentary accounts found throughout the area. The diary pages, written in a tremulous hand, describe encounters with these beings and hint at the fate that awaits any who touch them. The word aging in their name suggests that contact with them accelerates the passage of time, perhaps representing the flame's ability to consume not just space, but temporal existence itself. At the heart of the Abyssal Woods stands Midra's manse, a once grand estate now fallen into ruin and decay. The mansion cannot be seen on the world map, hidden beneath the bridge that connects other areas, symbolizing how the Frenzied Flame operates in the shadows and forgotten corners of the world. The approach to the mansion is fraught with danger, requiring players to navigate past numerous threats while maintaining their sanity in an environment that actively seeks to drive them mad. The manse itself tells the story of a community that attempted to study or perhaps worship the Frenzied Flame. Paintings throughout the structure depict Midra in his original human form, alongside his wife Nanaya. One particular painting shows Nanaya with her hand draped across her belly, suggesting that she may have been pregnant during their time studying the flame. This detail has led to speculation that their child might have been Shabriri himself, creating a direct connection between the failed lord of the realm of shadow and the herald of chaos in the lands between. Midra's personal quarters reveal the extent of his suffering and dedication. The room is filled with implements of self-torture and restraint, suggesting that he attempted to endure the flame's influence through sheer force of will. Books and scrolls scattered throughout the area hint at his scholarly approach to understanding the Frenzied Flame, indicating that his embrace of chaos was not the result of madness, but of deliberate study and calculation. The most tragic element of Midra's story is revealed through the environmental storytelling and item descriptions found throughout his domain. Midra was chosen, or chose himself, to become a Lord of Frenzied Flame, But his transformation was incomplete. Like Vyke before him, he proved unable to fully embrace the nihilistic philosophy required to wield the flame's ultimate power. His wife's final words to him, "Endure," became both his salvation and his torment, giving him the strength to resist complete transformation while trapping him in an eternal state of suffering. When players finally encounter Midra, they find him in a state that perfectly encapsulates the horror of incomplete transformation. He sits in his chair, a massive barbed sword thrust through his skull, held in place by his own will and the memory of his wife's final command. This image serves as perhaps the most striking visual representation of the Frenzied Flame's influence in the entire game, showing how the flame can trap its victims between human consciousness and cosmic chaos. The boss fight with Midra represents one of the most emotionally complex encounters in Elden Ring. In his first phase, Midra is barely capable of resistance, hobbling around in obvious pain and distress. Players are essentially forced to attack what appears to be a helpless, suffering victim. It's only when Midra finally gives in to the flame's influence, pulling the sword from his head and declaring that he has endured enough, that he becomes the magnificent and terrible Lord of Frenzied Flame. Midra's transformation sequence is both beautiful and horrifying. As he removes the sword, his head erupts into the characteristic flame of frenzy, and his body becomes wreathed in yellow fire. For a brief moment, he achieves the apotheosis that had been denied to him for so long, becoming the avatar of chaos that the Frenzied Flame required. Yet even in this moment of triumph, there's a sense of tragedy, as we know that this transformation has come too late and at too great a cost. The rewards obtained from Midra's defeat reflect the dual nature of his character. His great sword of damnation carries the weight of his suffering and determination, while his flame of frenzy incantation allows players to briefly manifest the same terrible power that consumed him. These items serve as reminders of both his failure and his eventual success, carrying forward the legacy of his torment into the player's own journey. The Shadow of the Erdtree, expansion's treatment of Midra and the Abyssal Woods, serves to humanize the Frenzied Flame in ways that the base game never attempted. Here we see not just the cosmic horror of the flame's influence, but the personal cost paid by those who seek to harness or understand it. Midra's story is not one of evil or ambition, but of love, dedication, and the terrible price of endurance. The connection between Midra and Nanaya also introduces themes of love and loss that complicate our understanding of the Frenzied Flame. Unlike other outer gods that corrupt through promises of power or dominion, the flame often touches those who are motivated by love and the desire to protect others. Midra's devotion to his wife and his willingness to endure unimaginable suffering for her memory makes his eventual fall all the more tragic. The Abyssal Woods and Midra's story expand our understanding of how the Frenzied Flame operates across different cultures and time periods. The Inquisition that once hunted flame-touched individuals in the realm of shadow parallels the persecution of the Great Caravan in the lands between, showing how attempts to suppress the flame through violence only serve to strengthen it. The transformation of the Inquisitors into aging untouchables demonstrates the futility of trying to combat cosmic forces through conventional means. Perhaps most importantly, Midra's tale shows us what happens to a Lord of Frenzied Flame who achieves their transformation too late to fulfill the flame's ultimate purpose. His success is hollow because the world he was meant to burn has already moved beyond his reach. This temporal displacement adds another layer of tragedy to his story, suggesting that even achieving the flame's highest calling may not bring the peace or purpose that its followers seek. Chapter 6: The Path to the Three Fingers. The journey to encounter the Three Fingers and inherit the Frenzied Flame represents one of the most challenging and symbolically rich questlines in all of Elden Ring. This path is not simply difficult in terms of gameplay mechanics. It represents a spiritual and psychological descent into the deepest, most forgotten corners of both the world and the human psyche. Every step toward the three fingers is a step away from the light of grace and toward the consuming darkness of cosmic chaos. The quest begins, appropriately enough, with suffering and loss. In the Weeping Peninsula, players encounter Irina, a young blind woman whose father Edgar serves as the commander of Castle Morn. Her simple request to deliver a letter to her father sets in motion a chain of events that will ultimately lead to tragedy and serve as the first glimpse into the kind of despair that the Frenzied Flame feeds upon. The tragedy of Irina and Edgar serves as a microcosm of the larger themes surrounding the Frenzied Flame. Edgar's failure to protect his daughter, despite his position and power, creates the kind of overwhelming grief and sense of helplessness that makes individuals vulnerable to the flame's influence. When Irina is murdered by the misbegotten rebels, Edgar's world collapses, and his quest for vengeance becomes an obsession that will eventually connect him to the broader network of those touched by madness. This opening tragedy establishes the emotional foundation for the Frenzied Flame questline. Unlike other endings that focus on political power or cosmic dominion, the path to becoming Lord of Frenzied Flame is paved with personal loss and intimate suffering. The flame doesn't typically choose the ambitious or the power-hungry. It chooses those who have been broken by the cruelties of existence and seek an end to all suffering through the ultimate destruction. The next crucial element of the questline involves Hyetta, a mysterious woman who appears throughout Liurnia seeking what she calls Shabriri grapes. These grapes are revealed to be the plucked eyes of those touched by the Frenzied Flame, and feeding them to Hyetta gradually reveals her connection to the flame's influence. Her transformation throughout the questline, from a seemingly innocent blind woman to a prophet of chaos, mirrors the gradual corruption that the flame inflicts upon all who come into contact with it. Hyetta's role in the questline is particularly insidious because she appears to be a victim in need of help. Players naturally want to assist her, gathering the grapes she requests without fully understanding their true nature. This manipulation reflects the flame's broader strategy of using compassion and kindness as pathways to corruption. The very desire to help others becomes a weakness that the flame exploits to spread its influence. The Shabriri grapes themselves represent one of the most disturbing elements of the Frenzied Flame's lore. The practice of removing one's own eyes as offerings to the flame speaks to the complete abandonment of conventional perception that the flame demands. Those who consume these grapes begin to see the flame as a distant light, suggesting that the loss of physical sight is replaced by a kind of spiritual vision that reveals the flame's true nature. As the questline progresses, players learn that Hyetta may not be entirely human. Her ability to see the flame as a distant light, her knowledge of its nature, and her role as a guide toward the three fingers suggest that she may be an avatar or manifestation of the flame itself. This possibility adds another layer of horror to the questline, as it suggests that the flame is capable of creating false prophets and guides to lead the unwary towards their doom. The true test of the Frenzied Flame questline comes with the journey into the subterranean shunning grounds beneath Leyndell. This descent is both literal and metaphorical, representing the abandonment of the surface world of politics and power for the deeper truths that lie buried beneath civilization's foundations. The very name shunning grounds suggests that this is where society deposits those things it cannot bear to acknowledge or confront. The exploration of the subterranean shunning grounds reveals layer upon layer of horror and tragedy. The area is filled with the remnants of the Great Caravan, their bodies transformed by centuries of exposure to the Frenzied Flame. Some have become little more than living instruments, endlessly playing melancholy melodies that serve as a lament for their lost civilization. Others attack with flame-infused magic, their minds long since consumed by the very force they summoned in their desperation. The pipe network that connects the various chambers of the shunning grounds creates a labyrinthine environment that mirrors the complexity of the flame's influence. Players must navigate through a maze of sewage and decay, encountering various horrors along the way. This journey through filth and corruption serves as a form of ritual purification in reverse, stripping away the pretenses and comforts of surface civilization to reveal the raw suffering that lies beneath. The encounter with Murg the Omen in the Cathedral of the Forsaken represents a significant challenge on the path to the Three Fingers. This version of Mog, different from his true form encountered in Mogwyn Palace, serves as a guardian or test for those seeking to descend further into the depths. His presence suggests that even among the outcasts and the damned, there are hierarchies and powers that must be confronted and overcome. The cathedral itself, with its grand architecture and religious symbolism, creates a striking contrast with the squalor of the surrounding areas. This juxtaposition suggests that even in the depths of despair and abandonment, there remains a kind of perverted sanctity. The cathedral serves as a temple to suffering itself, a place where the abandoned and forgotten can gather to share in their collective anguish. The final descent to the Three Fingers requires players to engage in a harrowing, platforming sequence, jumping from stone coffin to stone coffin as they descend into the deepest parts of the cathedral. This sequence is deliberately difficult and frustrating, serving as a final test of the player's commitment to the path they have chosen. The repeated failures and deaths that most players experience during this section mirror the persistence required to truly embrace the Frenzied Flame's philosophy. The coffins themselves tell their own story of the cathedral's purpose. Each one represents a life that ended in despair and abandonment, a soul that found no peace in the surface world and was consigned to this underground tomb. The fact that players must use these coffins as stepping stones to reach the Three Fingers suggests that the path to cosmic chaos is literally built upon the bones of the suffering. When players finally reach the bottom of the cathedral and approach the door that leads to the Three Fingers, they encounter one final requirement. They must remove all their armor and equipment. This stripping away of worldly possessions serves multiple symbolic purposes. It represents the abandonment of material concerns and social identity, the reduction of the self to its most basic essence. It also suggests a kind of ritual nakedness, a return to the primordial state that the Frenzied Flame seeks to restore to all existence. The door itself is sealed with powerful magic that only responds to those who have truly abandoned their attachment to the material world. The requirement to be unequipped suggests that the Three Fingers can only touch those who have completely surrendered their defenses, both physical and psychological. This vulnerability is essential to the Flame's influence, as it can only corrupt those who open themselves completely to its power. Hyetta's presence at this final threshold serves as both guide and witness to the player's transformation. Her words at this moment reveal the true philosophy of the Frenzied Flame, that all existence is a mistake that must be corrected through complete annihilation. She speaks of the one great from which all things came and to which all things must return, presenting the Flame's apocalyptic vision as a form of cosmic healing. The actual encounter with the Three Fingers represents the culmination of hours of preparation and the point of no return for the Frenzied Flame ending. The entity itself defies easy description, appearing as a massive hand with 3 fingers instead of the 2 that serve the greater will. This inversion suggests that the 3 fingers represent not just an alternative to the established order, but its complete negation. The touch of the 3 fingers leaves permanent marks upon the player character, both visible and invisible. The flame that burns in their eyes serves as a constant reminder of their transformation, while the psychological changes are reflected in Melina's reaction to their choice. Her abandonment of the player, declaring them no longer fit, represents the severing of all connections to the world of grace and order. The inheritance of the Frenzied Flame fundamentally changes the player's relationship with the game world. They are no longer a tarnish seeking to restore order, but an agent of chaos working towards the complete destruction of everything they once sought to save. This transformation is irreversible without extraordinary effort, representing the addictive and consuming nature of the flame's influence. The path to the Three Fingers serves as perhaps the most psychologically complex questline in Elden Ring, because it forces players to actively choose destruction over creation, despair over hope. Unlike other dark endings in From Software games, the Frenzied Flame ending requires players to repeatedly make choices that run counter to their natural instincts to help and protect others. This creates a unique form of ludonarrative harmony, where the difficulty of the questline mirrors the difficulty of the philosophical choices it represents. Chapter 7. The Philosophy of Annihilation. To truly understand the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending and its significance within Elden Ring's narrative, we must examine the philosophical foundations that underpin the Frenzied Flame's worldview. This is not merely a story about cosmic horror or magical corruption. It represents a coherent, if terrifying, philosophy about the nature of existence, suffering, and the ultimate meaning of life itself. The Frenzied Flame's core philosophy can be understood as a form of cosmic nihilism taken to its absolute extreme. Where traditional nihilism might argue that life has no inherent meaning, the Frenzied Flame goes further, proposing that existence itself is a fundamental error that must be corrected through complete annihilation. This is not the kind of destruction that clears the way for something new, but rather a return to the primordial state that existed before the mistake of creation ever occurred. Central to this philosophy is the concept of the One Great, mentioned by Hyetta during the final stages of the questline. According to the Flame's teachings, all things originally existed in a state of perfect unity, undifferentiated and eternal. The creation of individual existence, the separation of one thing from another, represents a cosmic wound that has been festering ever since. Every form of suffering, every conflict, every moment of loneliness or despair can be traced back to this original act of division. This philosophical framework explains why the Frenzied Flame is drawn to those who have experienced the deepest forms of suffering. Pain, according to the Flame's logic, is simply evidence of the fundamental wrongness of existence itself. Those who suffer greatly have come closest to understanding the truth that individual existence is nothing but a cruel joke played by cosmic forces that should never have allowed separation to occur in the first place. The Flame's promise to incinerate all that divides and distinguishes takes on deeper meaning when viewed through this philosophical lens. Division and distinction are not merely obstacles to be overcome, but the root cause of all suffering. Language itself, which allows us to name and categorize different aspects of reality, is seen as part of the problem. The Flame seeks to burn away not just physical matter, but the very concepts and categories that allow consciousness to perceive difference and therefore experience isolation. This philosophy directly challenges the fundamental assumptions underlying most of Elden Ring's other endings. Where the various Elden Lord endings seek to reform or perfect the existing order, and Ranni's Age of Stars ending seeks to transcend it, the Frenzied Flame ending rejects the entire premise that existence is worth preserving or improving. It argues that any attempt to fix the world is doomed to failure, because the world itself is the problem. The collectivist implications of the Frenzied Flame's philosophy are particularly striking. The Flame doesn't seek to elevate certain individuals or groups above others. Instead, it seeks to eliminate the very concept of individuality altogether. In the Flame's vision, there are no heroes or villains, no chosen ones or outcasts, because there are no separate individuals at all. This represents a radical form of equality, but one achieved through universal annihilation rather than universal elevation. The temporal aspects of the Frenzied Flame's philosophy also deserve examination. The Flame doesn't simply want to destroy the present world, it wants to undo the past as well, erasing the memory of division and returning to a state that predates the cosmic mistake of creation. This represents a form of temporal nihilism that goes beyond even the most extreme philosophical positions found in real-world thought. The flame's relationship to suffering reveals another crucial aspect of its philosophy. Rather than viewing suffering as something to be overcome or endured, the flame sees it as the clearest evidence of existence's fundamental wrongness. This creates a perverse form of validation for those who have experienced the deepest forms of trauma and despair. The flame tells them that their pain is not meaningless, but rather proof that they have glimpsed the truth that others refuse to acknowledge. This validation explains why the frenzied flame is often attractive to those who have been marginalized or persecuted by society. The great caravan, buried alive for their different beliefs, found in the flame a force that acknowledged their suffering and promised ultimate vindication. Vyke, faced with the impossible choice of sacrificing his beloved maiden, found in the flame an alternative that seemed to honor his love while offering a path to power. The flame's philosophy also contains a twisted form of mercy. By promising to end all suffering through the elimination of existence itself, it offers what it presents as the ultimate act of compassion. This merciful aspect of annihilation explains why many of the flame's followers are not cruel or sadistic, but rather individuals driven by a desire to end pain and injustice. They see themselves as offering the ultimate healing to a fundamentally wounded universe. The recursive nature of the flame's philosophy creates interesting paradoxes. If individual existence is an error, then the individual consciousness capable of recognizing this error is itself part of the problem. The very act of understanding the flame's philosophy requires the kind of separate, thinking self that the philosophy seeks to eliminate. This suggests that the flame's followers are trapped in a kind of philosophical prison, using the tools of consciousness to argue for consciousness's destruction. The flame's rejection of meaning and purpose extends even to its own goals. Unlike other cosmic forces that seek to impose their vision of order or chaos upon the world, the frenzied flame seeks to eliminate the very concepts of vision, order, and chaos. Its ultimate success would render meaningless not only its own philosophy, but the very capacity for philosophy itself. This represents perhaps the most radical form of anti-teleological thinking imaginable. The relationship between the frenzied flame and the concept of love presents some of the most complex philosophical challenges in the entire game. Many of the flame's most devoted followers are motivated by love. Vyke's love for his maiden, Midra's love for his wife Nanaya, the great caravan's love for their persecuted community. The flame seems to argue that love itself, by creating attachment to particular individuals, is part of the problem of division and distinction. Yet the flame also appears to offer a twisted form of universal love, promising to unite all things in the ultimate embrace of annihilation. This creates a philosophical tension between the flame's rejection of particular loves and its promise of universal unity. The flame suggests that true love would seek the elimination of the beloved's suffering, even if that requires the elimination of the beloved's existence. The temporal implications of choosing the frenzied flame ending raise questions about moral responsibility and the nature of choice itself. If the flame succeeds in its goal of returning all things to primordial unity, then the choice to pursue that goal will itself be erased from existence. This creates a situation where the most significant choice possible is one that renders the concept of choice meaningless. The flame's philosophy also challenges conventional notions of progress and improvement. Most human endeavors are based on the assumption that things can be made better through effort and understanding. The frenzied flame rejects this assumption entirely, arguing that any improvement is merely a rearrangement of the fundamental error of existence. This creates a kind of meta-nihilism that encompasses not just life and meaning, but the very possibility of positive change. The relationship between the frenzied flame and other cosmic forces in Elden Ring's universe reveals the radical nature of its philosophy. Other outer gods seek to impose their particular vision of order or influence upon the world, But the Frenzied Flame seeks to eliminate the very substrate upon which such impositions could take place. It represents not just an alternative cosmic force, but the negation of the entire concept of cosmic force. The psychological appeal of the Frenzied Flame's philosophy becomes clearer when viewed in the context of trauma and overwhelming suffering. For those who have experienced the deepest forms of pain, the promise of an end to all suffering through the elimination of existence itself can seem like the only genuine solution. The flame offers not just personal release, but cosmic vindication for their pain. The flame's philosophy raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and its relationship to suffering. If consciousness is necessary for the experience of suffering, then the elimination of consciousness would indeed eliminate suffering. However, it would also eliminate all the positive aspects of existence that consciousness makes possible. The flame's philosophy suggests that this trade-off is not only acceptable, but necessary. Perhaps most disturbingly, the Frenzied Flame's philosophy contains its own form of internal logic that can be difficult to refute on purely rational grounds. If one accepts the premise that existence inevitably contains more suffering than joy, and that this suffering is inherent to the structure of reality itself, rather than merely an accidental feature, then the flame's solution begins to seem almost reasonable. The ultimate tragedy of the Frenzied Flame's philosophy is that it may be born from a genuine compassion for the suffering of conscious beings. The desire to end all pain and create perfect unity comes from a recognition of the very real cruelties and injustices that characterize existence. However, the solution it proposes is so extreme that it eliminates not just suffering, but the very possibility of meaning, love, beauty, and all the things that might make suffering worthwhile. Chapter 8. The Lord's Transformation. The moment when a candidate for the Lord of Frenzied Flame undergoes their final transformation represents one of the most profound and terrifying metamorphoses depicted in any From Software game. This is not merely a change in power or allegiance, but a fundamental alteration of being itself, a dissolution of individual identity into something cosmic and terrible. Understanding this transformation requires examining both its physical manifestations and its deeper metaphysical implications. The transformation begins with the touch of the three fingers, an event that leaves permanent marks upon both body and soul. The fingerprints burned into the candidate's flesh serve as a kind of cosmic branding, marking them as property of forces beyond mortal comprehension. These marks cannot be hidden or removed through any conventional means, serving as a constant reminder of the choice that has been made and the path that must now be followed. The most visible sign of the transformation is the replacement of the candidate's eyes with flames of frenzy. This change represents more than mere physical alteration. It symbolizes a complete shift in perception and understanding. Where human eyes see the world in terms of distinct objects and individuals, the flame eyes see only the underlying unity that the Frenzied Flame seeks to restore. This new vision is both blessing and curse, revealing truths that mortal minds were never meant to comprehend. The process of becoming a Lord of Frenzied Flame requires the candidate to endure unimaginable suffering while maintaining their commitment to the flame's ultimate goal. This endurance is not passive acceptance, but active participation in their own destruction and reconstruction. The candidate must consciously choose, moment by moment, to surrender more of their humanity to the cosmic force that is remaking them. Physical changes accompany the psychological transformation. The candidate's flesh becomes a conduit for the Frenzied Flame, capable of channeling its power in ways that defy natural law. Their very presence begins to affect the environment around them, causing spontaneous manifestations of the flame and inducing madness in those who come too close. They become living avatars of chaos, their existence a constant challenge to the ordered world around them. The transformation is not uniform across all candidates. Each potential Lord of Frenzied Flame experiences the process differently, shaped by their individual psychology, their reasons for seeking the flame's power, and their capacity to endure its influence. Vyke's incomplete transformation left him trapped between humanity and cosmic chaos, while Midra's prolonged suffering created a unique form of endurance that delayed his full metamorphosis for centuries. The role of will in the transformation process cannot be overstated. The Frenzied Flame requires active participation from its chosen vessels. It cannot simply impose itself upon unwilling subjects. This requirement explains why so many potential lords fail to complete their transformation. The flame demands not just physical endurance, but philosophical commitment to its apocalyptic vision. Those who retain doubts or attachments to the world of individual existence find themselves unable to fully embrace their new nature. The temporal aspects of the transformation create additional complexity. Time seems to operate differently for those touched by the three fingers, with some experiencing rapid changes, while others endure prolonged periods of gradual alteration. Midra's centuries-long transformation suggests that the flame operates according to its own cosmic timeline, unconcerned with mortal concepts of urgency or efficiency. Memory plays a crucial role in the transformation process. As candidates become more aligned with the Frenzied Flame, their personal memories begin to blur and merge with the cosmic consciousness of the flame itself. This loss of individual memory is both liberating and terrifying, freeing them from personal attachments while simultaneously erasing everything that made them unique individuals. The social isolation that accompanies transformation reflects the fundamental incompatibility between the flame's vision and ordinary human society. As candidates become more aligned with cosmic chaos, they find themselves unable to maintain normal relationships or participate in conventional social structures. This isolation is not merely a side effect of their transformation, but an essential part of it, forcing them to abandon all ties to the world they are destined to destroy. The physical manifestation of the Frenzied Flame through the transformed Lord's body creates a feedback loop that accelerates the transformation process. Each use of the flame's power draws the candidate deeper into their new nature, making it increasingly difficult to return to their previous state. This addictive quality of the flame's power explains why so few who touch it are ever able to break free from its influence. The relationship between the transformed Lord and ordinary reality becomes increasingly tenuous as the metamorphosis progresses. They begin to exist partially outside normal space and time, able to perceive and interact with cosmic forces that remain invisible to others. This expanded perception comes at the cost of their ability to relate to the mundane concerns of ordinary existence. The loss of individual identity that characterizes the final stages of transformation represents perhaps the most profound change of all. The candidate begins to merge with the cosmic consciousness of the Frenzied Flame itself, losing their sense of self as a separate entity. This dissolution of ego is presented as both the ultimate goal and the ultimate terror of the transformation process. The paradox of consciousness during transformation creates unique challenges for understanding the process. The candidate must remain aware enough to actively participate in their own dissolution, yet surrender enough of their individual will to allow the cosmic force to remake them. This delicate balance explains why so many attempts at becoming a Lord of Frenzied Flame end in failure or incomplete transformation. The environmental effects of a fully transformed Lord of Frenzied Flame extend far beyond their immediate presence. Their very existence begins to warp reality around them, creating zones of chaos and madness that spread outward like a cosmic infection. These reality distortions serve as previews of what would happen if the flame's ultimate vision were to be realized on a global scale. The relationship between the transformed Lord and other cosmic forces becomes increasingly complex as the metamorphosis progresses. They begin to exist on the same ontological level as outer gods and other cosmic entities, able to perceive and interact with forces that operate on scales beyond mortal comprehension. This elevation comes with corresponding responsibilities and limitations that ordinary consciousness cannot fully grasp. The question of reversibility haunts every transformation. While Miquella's needle offers a theoretical means of undoing the flame's influence, the deeper the transformation progresses, the more difficult reversal becomes. Beyond a certain point, the candidate's original identity becomes so thoroughly dissolved that restoration would be meaningless, as there would be nothing left to restore. The aesthetic manifestations of the transformation reflect the flame's fundamental nature. The characteristic yellow flame that replaces human features is not merely destructive, but represents a kind of cosmic fire that burns away the illusions of individual existence. This flame reveals the underlying unity that the Frenzied Flame believes to be reality's true nature. The relationship between love and transformation presents one of the most complex aspects of becoming a Lord of Frenzied Flame. Many candidates are motivated by love for specific individuals, yet the transformation process requires them to transcend such particular attachments in favor of a cosmic love that encompasses all existence through its destruction. This tension between particular and universal love creates internal conflicts that can either accelerate or impede the transformation process. The final stage of transformation, when the candidate becomes a true Lord of Frenzied Flame, represents a point of no return that extends beyond individual choice. Once this threshold is crossed, the cosmic forces at work become self-sustaining, no longer requiring the active participation of the original personality. The Lord becomes a living embodiment of the flame's will, their individual consciousness subsumed into its cosmic purpose. The tragic irony of the transformation is that it often attracts those whose very capacity for love and sacrifice makes them worthy candidates. Yet these same qualities must be transcended for the transformation to succeed. The flame creates its own lords from the best aspects of humanity, then requires them to abandon those aspects in service of cosmic destruction. This creates a poetic justice that reflects the flame's complex relationship with the very existence it seeks to eliminate. Chapter 9. The Apocalyptic Vision. The ending that awaits those who choose to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame represents perhaps the most absolute conclusion possible in any From Software game. This is not merely the destruction of a kingdom or the fall of a civilization, but the complete annihilation of existence itself. Understanding this apocalyptic vision requires examining both its immediate manifestations and its ultimate implications for the nature of reality in the Elden Ring universe. The cinematic presentation of the Frenzied Flame ending provides one of the most striking and memorable sequences in the entire game. As the newly crowned Lord of Frenzied Flame approaches Marika's remains in the heart of the Erdtree, their transformation becomes complete. Their head erupts into the characteristic yellow flame, and their very presence begins to set the world ablaze. The Erdtree, that mighty symbol of order and life, becomes nothing more than kindling for the cosmic fire that will consume all existence. The visual symbolism of this moment cannot be overstated. The Erdtree has served throughout the game as the central axis around which all life and order revolve. Its burning represents not just the end of the current age, but the negation of the very concept of ages themselves. This is not a cyclic ending that clears the way for renewal, but a terminal conclusion that forecloses all possibility of future existence. The scope of the destruction extends far beyond the physical realm. The Frenzied Flame doesn't simply burn matter, it burns the very concepts and categories that allow existence to be perceived and understood. Space and time themselves become fuel for the cosmic fire, suggesting that the destruction transcends the material world to encompass the fundamental structures of reality itself. The speed with which the destruction spreads indicates the thoroughness of the flame's preparation. This is not a gradual apocalypse that unfolds over years or centuries, but an instantaneous cosmic event that transforms everything it touches. The flame has been building toward this moment throughout history, gathering power and influence until it could achieve its ultimate goal in a single, universe-ending conflagration. The absence of survivors in the traditional sense reflects the absolute nature of the flame's vision. Other apocalyptic scenarios often include the possibility of hidden refugees or distant lands that might escape destruction, but the Frenzied Flame's apocalypse leaves no room for such hope. Its goal is the complete elimination of existence itself, not merely the destruction of particular forms of life or civilization. The philosophical implications of this ending challenge fundamental assumptions about narrative closure and meaning. Most stories, even tragic ones, preserve some sense that events have significance within a larger context. The Frenzied Flame ending eliminates that context entirely, suggesting that the only meaningful response to existence is its complete negation. The relationship between the Lord of Frenzied Flame and their former identity becomes completely severed in the final moments. The being that ignites the apocalypse is no longer the tarnished who began the journey, but a cosmic force wearing their form. This dissolution of individual identity into cosmic purpose represents the ultimate fulfillment of the Flame's philosophy. The temporal implications of the ending suggest that the destruction extends beyond the present moment to encompass all of time. The Flame doesn't simply end the world, it unmakes it, erasing not just the future, but the past as well. This temporal annihilation means that from the Flame's perspective, the world never existed at all, creating a kind of ontological paradox that defies conventional understanding. The absence of dialogue or explanation during the ending sequence reflects the inadequacy of language to describe what is occurring. Words, like all other forms of distinction and division, are being consumed by the Flame. The silence is not empty, but full, pregnant with the weight of absolute ending that cannot be captured in any form of communication. The reaction of other characters to the player's choice provides insight into the magnitude of what has been unleashed. Melina's vow to deliver destined death to the Lord of Frenzied Flame, spoken over the burning world, suggests that even cosmic forces recognize the transgression that has occurred. Her promise of vengeance becomes meaningless in the face of universal annihilation, yet her commitment to it speaks to the fundamental wrongness of what has been chosen. The variations in the ending sequence, depending on when the player embraced the Three Fingers, reveal the Flame's relationship to concepts of sacrifice and mercy. If Melina was spared from her sacrificial role at the Forge of Giants, her appearance at the end of the world becomes even more poignant. The very act of trying to save her led to consequences that made her salvation meaningless, creating a tragic irony that reflects the Flame's corrupting influence on even the noblest intentions. The visual aesthetics of the burning world reveal the Flame's true nature as something beyond ordinary fire. The yellow flames that consume everything have an otherworldly quality that suggests they operate according to different physical laws than normal combustion. This cosmic fire burns away not just matter, but the very possibility of matter, consuming the substrate of reality itself. The absence of pain or suffering in the ending sequence suggests that the Flame's promise of ending suffering is, in its own twisted way, fulfilled. There are no screams of agony or expressions of terror because consciousness itself is being consumed too quickly for such experiences to register. This merciful aspect of the destruction provides a disturbing validation of the Flame's philosophy. The totality of the destruction raises questions about the nature of existence beyond the confines of the game world. If the Frenzied Flame's influence extends to all reality, then its victory represents not just the end of the lands between, but the end of everything. This cosmic scope transforms what might otherwise be a local catastrophe into an event of universal significance. The relationship between the Lord of Frenzied Flame and other cosmic entities becomes irrelevant in the face of universal annihilation. The Greater Will, the other outer gods, and all the complex relationships between cosmic forces are simply consumed by the Flame's all-encompassing hunger. This suggests that the flame represents something beyond the normal ecology of cosmic entities, a force that transcends rather than participates in their conflicts. The question of consciousness during the apocalypse presents unique challenges. If the Lord of Frenzied Flame retains any awareness during the destruction, they would be witnessing the fulfillment of their ultimate purpose while simultaneously experiencing their own dissolution. This creates a paradox of observation where the witness to the ending is themselves being ended. The potential for reversal or escape becomes meaningless once the ending is set in motion. Unlike other conclusions that might theoretically be undone or amended, the Frenzied Flame ending forecloses all possibilities for change or restoration. The finality is absolute, extending beyond the physical destruction to encompass the very concepts of possibility and potential. The aesthetic beauty of the ending sequence creates a disturbing contrast with its horrific implications. The flames that consume the world are visually stunning, creating a kind of terrible beauty that reflects the flame's seductive power. This beauty serves as a final temptation, suggesting that even in ultimate destruction, there can be a kind of cosmic majesty. The silence that follows the conflagration represents perhaps the most profound aspect of the ending. This is not the silence of peaceful rest or completed action, but the silence of absolute negation. It is the sound of nothing, not just the absence of noise, but the absence of the very possibility of sound, communication, or meaning. The implications for other worlds and realities within the broader From Software universe remain tantalizingly ambiguous. Some have theorized that the Frenzied Flame ending might serve as a prequel to other cosmic events depicted in different games, but the absolute nature of the destruction suggests that such connections would require fundamental reconceptualization of what destruction and creation mean on a cosmic scale. The ending's relationship to the concept of closure reveals the radical nature of the Frenzied Flame's philosophy. Traditional narrative closure provides resolution while preserving the meaningfulness of what came before. The Frenzied Flame ending provides ultimate closure by eliminating the very possibility of meaning, creating a form of resolution that negates rather than fulfills the narrative that preceded it. Perhaps most disturbing of all is the suggestion that this ending might be, from the Flame's perspective, a happy one. The achievement of the Flame's ultimate goal represents the successful completion of its cosmic purpose. The horror lies not in failure, but in success, in the perfect realization of a vision that reduces all existence to nothing while claiming this reduction as the ultimate good. Chapter 10. The Needle's Salvation. In the vast tapestry of Elden Ring's lore, few items carry as much significance as Miquella's needle, the only known means of reversing the Frenzied Flame's influence and escaping the apocalyptic fate that awaits the Lord of Frenzied Flame. This delicate artifact represents hope in the face of cosmic despair, yet its very existence raises profound questions about the nature of choice, redemption, and the possibility of escape from seemingly inevitable doom. The needle's origins lie in the brilliant mind of Miquella, the Empyrean child whose attempts to cure his sister Malenia's scarlet rot led him to create tools capable of warding away the influence of outer gods. This unalloyed gold needle represents one of the few successful attempts to create something that could resist cosmic forces, making it perhaps the most precious artifact in the entire world of Elden Ring. The process of obtaining Miquella's needle requires completing one of the game's most complex and emotionally challenging quest lines, the Journey of Millicent. This young woman, born from the scarlet rot that consumed her progenitor Malenia, struggles throughout her quest to define her own identity, separate from the cosmic force that created her. Her story parallels that of potential lords of Frenzied Flame, showing how individuals can resist the influence of outer gods through sheer force of will and the support of others. Millicent's quest takes players through some of the most dangerous and beautiful locations in the game, from the rot-infested Caelid to the mystical Erdtree. Each stage of her journey represents a choice between accepting the fate imposed by cosmic forces and fighting for individual agency. Her willingness to suffer and potentially die rather than accept the role that the Scarlet Rot has prepared for her serves as an inspiration for those who seek to escape the Frenzied Flame's influence. The needle's requirement that it be used in the heart of the storm beyond time points to one of the most mysterious locations in Elden Ring's cosmology, the arena of Dragon Lord Placidusax. This ancient dragon, once Elden Lord in an age before the current order, exists in a place removed from the normal flow of time. The choice of this location for the needle's use is deeply symbolic, representing a return to a state before the current cosmic conflicts began. Placidusax himself represents a fascinating parallel to the Lord of Frenzied Flame. Both are beings who have been abandoned by their gods and left to wait in isolation for a resolution that may never come. The dragon's patient vigil in his timeless arena mirrors the endless suffering of those touched by the Frenzied Flame, yet his continued existence proves that it is possible to endure cosmic abandonment without embracing apocalyptic solutions. The mechanics of using Miquella's needle reveal important truths about the nature of cosmic influence and free will. The needle doesn't simply remove the Frenzied Flame's mark, it actively resists the influence of outer gods, creating a space of protection around the user. This suggests that escape from cosmic forces is possible, but requires both the right tools and the right circumstances. The needle's unalloyed gold composition is crucial to its function. This pure metal, untainted by any cosmic influence, represents the possibility of existence independent from the manipulations of outer gods. Miquella's discovery of how to create such pure gold represents one of the greatest achievements in the history of the Lands Between, offering hope that mortals need not be forever subject to forces beyond their comprehension. The timing requirements for using the needle create additional layers of meaning. It cannot be used just anywhere or at any time. The specific conditions of Placidusax's arena are necessary for its function. This suggests that liberation from cosmic influence requires not just the right tools, but the right moment and place, when the normal rules of reality are suspended enough to allow genuine choice. The reversibility offered by the needle raises profound questions about the nature of the choices players make throughout their journey. If the consequences of embracing the Frenzied Flame can be undone, what does this say about the weight and permanence of our decisions? The needle suggests that even the most seemingly final choices might be reversible under the right circumstances, offering hope for redemption even in the darkest moments. The difficulty of obtaining and using the needle serves as a metaphor for the challenge of overcoming despair and nihilism in real life. The path to redemption requires facing some of the game's most challenging content, defeating Millennia and potentially Placidusax, representing the enormous effort required to escape from cycles of destruction and despair. The needle's existence also serves as a critique of the Frenzied Flame's absolutist philosophy. If it were truly impossible to escape the influence of cosmic forces, the needle could not exist. Its very presence in the game suggests that the Flame's claims about the inevitability of its vision are false, that there are always alternatives for those willing to seek them out. The relationship between Miquella's needle and the broader themes of Elden Ring reveals the game's ultimate message about agency and hope. Even in a world dominated by cosmic forces and predetermined fates, individuals retain the power to choose their own path. The needle represents the triumph of mortal ingenuity over cosmic inevitability, showing that even gods and outer gods are not beyond the reach of determined resistance. The emotional impact of using the needle to reverse the Frenzied Flame varies depending on the player's investment in the character's journey. For those who have fully embraced the role of Lord of Frenzied Flame, the decision to reverse course represents a fundamental rejection of everything they have worked toward. For others, it might represent a moment of clarity, a recognition that the path they chose was wrong. The needle's inability to restore everything that was lost during the transformation process serves as a reminder that some choices have permanent consequences. While it can remove the Frenzied Flame's influence, it cannot undo the memories of what was experienced or the knowledge of what was contemplated. The scars of the journey remain, serving as permanent reminders of how close one came to ultimate destruction. The philosophical implications of the needle extend beyond its immediate game mechanics. It represents the idea that no matter how far someone falls into despair or nihilism, there is always the possibility of return. This message of hope stands in stark contrast to the Frenzied Flame's philosophy of inevitable destruction, offering an alternative vision of what is possible for conscious beings. The needle's connection to Millicent's story adds another layer of meaning to its use. Just as Millicent chose to define her own identity rather than accept the fate imposed by the Scarlet Rot, players who use the needle are choosing to define their own destiny rather than accept the role of cosmic destroyer. This parallel reinforces the themes of individual agency and resistance to predetermined fate. The technical aspects of the needle's function reveal interesting details about how cosmic influence operates in the Elden Ring universe. The fact that it can ward away the meddling of outer gods suggests that their power, while vast, is not absolute. This limitation creates space for mortal resistance and provides hope that the seemingly omnipotent forces that shape the world can be challenged and overcome. The irony of using a creation of Miquella, himself an Empyrean touched by cosmic forces, to resist other cosmic influences adds complexity to the needle's significance. It suggests that those who have been touched by such forces might be uniquely positioned to help others resist them, turning their experience of cosmic influence into a tool for liberation rather than domination. The needle's rarity and the difficulty of its creation ensure that it remains a precious resource rather than a widely available solution. This scarcity reflects the real-world truth that escape from cycles of despair and destruction is possible but not easy, requiring significant effort, knowledge, and often the help of others who have walked similar paths. The act of using the needle in Placidusax's arena creates a moment of profound symbolic resonance. The player stands in the presence of an ancient lord who has waited eternally for his god's return, using a tool created by a young god to resist the influence of cosmic forces. This convergence of past, present, and future represents the complex web of relationships that define existence in the lands between. The needle's existence serves as proof that Miquella's vision of a world free from the harmful influence of outer gods was not merely a dream, but a practical possibility. His ability to create unalloyed gold and fashion it into a tool of resistance demonstrates that mortals possess the capability to protect themselves from cosmic manipulation if they have the knowledge and will to do so. The psychological impact of choosing to use the needle reflects the broader human struggle with despair and the search for meaning. The decision to reject the Frenzied Flame's vision of universal destruction in favor of continued existence in an imperfect world requires a form of courage that mirrors real-world choices about how to respond to suffering and injustice. Chapter 11. The Failed Lords and Their Lessons. Throughout the history of the lands between and the realm of shadow, numerous individuals have attempted to become Lords of Frenzied Flame. Yet few have succeeded in achieving this terrible apotheosis. The stories of these failed lords provide crucial insights into the nature of the Frenzied Flame's power and the qualities required to wield it. Their failures are not merely personal tragedies, but cosmic lessons about the relationship between individual will and universal forces. Vyke stands as perhaps the most prominent example of a failed Lord of Frenzied Flame, his story serving as both warning and mirror for the player character's journey. His failure stemmed not from weakness, but from the very qualities that made him worthy of lordship in the first place: his love for his maiden and his unwillingness to sacrifice others for his own advancement. The Frenzied Flame requires complete commitment to its nihilistic vision, and Vyke's lingering attachments to the world of individual existence prevented him from fully embracing the flame's power. The incomplete nature of Vyke's transformation reveals important truths about how the Frenzied Flame operates. The flame cannot simply impose itself upon unwilling vessels. It requires active participation and philosophical commitment from its chosen candidates. Vyke's resistance to the flame's ultimate implications trapped him in a state between human and cosmic consciousness, denied the peace of either full humanity or complete transformation. Vyke's fate after his failed transformation illustrates the cruel nature of the Frenzied Flame's influence. Rather than releasing him from its power, his failure condemned him to an existence of endless conflict and confusion. His appearance as an invader in other players' worlds can be understood as the flame's influence driving him to spread chaos and suffering. Even though he lacks the power to achieve the flame's ultimate goals, the community that formed around Vyke in the Frenzied Flame village provides insight into how failed lords affect their surroundings. The villagers' worship of Vyke, followed by their mockery of his failure, reflects the fickle nature of those touched by the flame's influence. Their inability to distinguish between genuine lordship and mere proximity to cosmic power demonstrates the confused state of consciousness that the flame induces in its followers. Midra represents a different type of failed lord, one whose story was expanded significantly in the shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Unlike Vyke's rapid encounter with the Three Fingers, Midra's transformation was a prolonged process of suffering and endurance that stretched across centuries. His failure was not immediate, but gradual, a slow erosion of his humanity that never quite reached the critical threshold required for true lordship. The role of Nanaya in Midra's story adds a crucial element often missing from other failed lord narratives: the influence of love and external support. Nanaya's final word to Midra, "Endure," became both his salvation and his torment. Her command gave him the strength to resist complete transformation, while simultaneously trapping him in an eternal state of suffering. This paradox reveals how love can both protect against cosmic influence and perpetuate the very suffering it seeks to prevent. Midra's physical state when players encounter him serves as a powerful visual metaphor for the condition of failed lords. The massive sword thrust through his skull, held in place by his own will and the memory of his wife's words, represents the internal conflict between human consciousness and cosmic force. His eventual removal of the sword and transformation into a true Lord of Frenzied Flame comes only when he finally abandons the human attachments that had previously sustained his resistance. The timing of Midra's final transformation raises important questions about the nature of success and failure in relation to the Frenzied Flame. His achievement of true lordship comes too late to fulfill the flame's ultimate purpose, as the world he was meant to destroy has moved beyond his reach. This temporal displacement suggests that even success in becoming a Lord of Frenzied Flame may be meaningless if it occurs outside the proper cosmic context. The Inquisition that persecuted Midra and his followers represents another aspect of how failed lords emerge. The attempts to suppress the Frenzied Flame through violence and persecution only served to strengthen its influence, creating the very conditions that would eventually produce a Lord of Frenzied Flame. This pattern repeats throughout the game's history, suggesting that the flame feeds on attempts to destroy it. The transformation of the Inquisitors themselves into aging untouchables provides a poetic justice that reflects the Frenzied Flame's complex relationship with its enemies. Those who sought to destroy the flame through violence became its servants, their original purpose inverted into its opposite. This transformation serves as a warning about the dangers of fighting cosmic forces with conventional methods. The diary pages scattered throughout the Abyssal Woods tell the story of the Inquisition from the perspective of those who lived through it. These fragmentary accounts reveal the gradual corruption of noble intentions into cycles of violence and persecution. The Inquisitors' original goal of protecting people from the Frenzied Flame's influence was slowly perverted into a justification for cruelty and oppression. The concept of aging associated with the untouchables, adds another dimension to understanding failed transformation. The word suggests that contact with the frenzied flame accelerates the passage of time, perhaps representing the flame's ability to consume not just space, but temporal existence itself. This temporal corruption may be one reason why so many attempts to become Lords of Frenzied Flame end in failure. The relationship between failed lords and the communities that surround them reveals important patterns about how cosmic influence spreads through populations. Failed lords often become focal points for the flame's influence, attracting followers who mistake proximity to power for genuine understanding. These communities of flame-touched individuals represent what happens when cosmic forces touch mortals without proper guidance or complete transformation. The weapons and artifacts left behind by failed lords carry traces of their incomplete transformation. Vyke's fingerprint armor and lance retain some of the Three Fingers' power, while Midra's greatsword and flame incantation allow others to briefly access the power he eventually achieved. These items serve as both warnings and temptations, offering glimpses of cosmic power while carrying the risk of similar corruption. The psychological profiles of failed lords reveal common patterns that help explain why so many attempts at transformation end in failure. Most failed lords are motivated by love or a desire to protect others, qualities that initially make them worthy candidates but ultimately prevent them from embracing the flame's nihilistic vision. The flame seems to deliberately choose those whose virtues will become obstacles to their transformation. The role of external support in determining success or failure cannot be overstated. Vyke's isolation after embracing the Three Fingers contributed to his incomplete transformation, while Midra's connection to Nanaya's memory both sustained and limited him. This suggests that the process of becoming a Lord of Frenzied Flame requires not just individual will, but the right kind of social and emotional context. The failed Lord's inability to let go of their humanity reflects a fundamental tension in the Frenzied Flame's philosophy. The flame seeks to eliminate individual existence, yet it requires individual consciousness to carry out its will. This paradox may explain why so many attempts at transformation fail. The very consciousness required to become a lord resists the dissolution that the flame ultimately demands. The question of whether failed lords can eventually succeed adds another layer of complexity to their stories. Midra's eventual transformation suggests that failure may not be permanent, that given enough time and the right circumstances, a failed lord might eventually complete their metamorphosis. However, the temporal displacement of his success raises questions about whether such delayed transformation has any meaningful purpose. The failed lords serve as cautionary tales for the player character, showing the potential consequences of embracing the frenzied flame without full commitment to its vision. Their stories demonstrate that partial transformation may be worse than no transformation at all, trapping individuals in states of eternal conflict between human consciousness and cosmic purpose. The legacy of failed lords extends beyond their individual stories to influence the broader world's relationship with the frenzied flame. Their incomplete transformations create pockets of chaos and madness that spread the flame's influence even without a true lord to guide it. This suggests that failure, in its own way, serves the flame's ultimate purpose by creating conditions for future manifestations. The philosophical implications of failed lordship challenge conventional notions of success and failure. From the frenzied flame's perspective, even failed attempts at transformation serve its ultimate goal by spreading chaos and despair. This raises questions about whether any resistance to the flame's influence is truly meaningful, or whether all efforts ultimately serve its cosmic purpose. The failed lord's stories collectively suggest that the path to becoming a lord of frenzied flame is not simply a matter of power or will, but requires a fundamental compatibility between individual psychology and cosmic purpose. Those who retain too much humanity, too much love for the world of individual existence, will inevitably fall short of the flame's expectations, trapped forever between two incompatible states of being. Chapter 12. The Greater Will's Shadow. The relationship between the Frenzied Flame and the Greater Will represents one of the most profound cosmic conflicts in Elden Ring's mythology. These two forces, often interpreted as opposite sides of the same primordial entity, embody fundamentally different visions of what existence should be. Understanding this relationship requires examining not just their opposition, but the ways in which they mirror and define each other. The two fingers and three fingers serve as the most visible manifestations of this cosmic duality. The two fingers, representing order, division, and the maintenance of hierarchical structures, stand in direct opposition to the three fingers' vision of unity through annihilation. The numerical difference between them suggests an imbalance, with the three fingers representing not just an alternative to the two fingers, but an excess, an overflow that threatens to destabilize the entire cosmic order. The theory that both entities were once part of a single five fingers has gained significant traction among scholars of Elden Ring's lore. This interpretation suggests that the current conflict represents a cosmic wound, a division within what was once a unified force. If true, this would make the struggle between order and chaos not just an external conflict but an internal one, with the universe itself torn between competing aspects of its own nature. Hyeta's mention of the One Great, from which all things came, provides crucial insight into this primordial unity. According to this cosmology, the current state of existence, with its divisions and distinctions, represents a fallen state. The Greater Will's order and the Frenzied Flame's chaos are both responses to this cosmic fracture, offering different solutions to the fundamental problem of separation and division. The Greater Will's solution involves the creation and maintenance of elaborate hierarchical structures that acknowledge division while attempting to organize it into meaningful patterns. The Elden Ring itself serves as the ultimate expression of this philosophy, creating a cosmic order that assigns specific roles and relationships to different aspects of existence. This approach accepts the reality of division while trying to make it productive and meaningful. The Frenzied Flame solution is far more radical: the complete elimination of division through universal annihilation. From the Flame's perspective, the Greater Will's attempts to organize division are doomed to failure because they accept the fundamental error of separation. Only by returning to the primordial state of unity can the cosmic wound be truly healed. The Golden Order, as the Greater Will's most recent manifestation in the lands between, demonstrates both the achievements and limitations of the ordered approach to existence. Under Marika's rule, the Golden Order created unprecedented stability and prosperity, yet it also institutionalized discrimination and oppression. The very categories that made order possible also created hierarchies that inevitably led to suffering and injustice. The Frenzied Flame's emergence as a response to the Golden Order's failings suggests that the two forces exist in a dialectical relationship. The flame feeds on the suffering and injustice created by attempts to impose order, growing stronger in response to the very successes of ordered civilization. This creates a cosmic feedback loop where order creates the conditions for its own negation. The persecution of the Great Caravan exemplifies this dialectical relationship. The Golden Order's attempt to maintain religious and cultural purity led to the burial of an entire people, whose collective despair then summoned the very force that threatened to destroy everything the Order had built. The Flame's emergence from the depths beneath the capital city symbolizes how chaos grows from the foundation of order itself. The concept of grace, central to the Greater Will's influence, stands in direct opposition to the Frenzied Flame's universal condemnation. Grace selects specific individuals for special roles and purposes, creating categories of chosen and unchosen that define the ordered world. The Flame rejects these distinctions entirely, offering its influence to anyone willing to embrace its vision, regardless of their status in the ordered hierarchy. The Erdtree's role as both a symbol of order and a target for destruction reveals the complex relationship between these cosmic forces. The tree represents the greater will's attempt to create a visible, permanent symbol of order that could serve as a focal point for faith and stability. The Frenzied Flame's desire to burn the tree represents not just destruction, but a rejection of the very idea that such symbols are necessary or beneficial. The question of whether the greater will abandoned the world, as suggested by various characters and item descriptions, adds another dimension to understanding its relationship with the Frenzied Flame. If the greater will has indeed withdrawn its direct influence, this might explain the flame's growing power. The absence of active opposition from the force of order could allow chaos to spread unchecked. The role of the Elden beast as the living incarnation of the greater will's order provides insight into how cosmic forces manifest in the physical world. The beast's alien nature and its fusion with Radagon suggest that order itself is not natural to the world, but imposed from outside. This external imposition creates resistance and resentment that the Frenzied Flame can exploit. The various outer gods that influence the world represent alternative approaches to the fundamental cosmic problem. The god of rot offers decay and renewal, the formless mother offers blood and sacrifice, and others provide their own visions of how existence should be organized. The Frenzied Flame stands apart from these alternatives by rejecting the entire framework within which they operate. The temporal aspects of the conflict between order and chaos reveal another layer of their relationship. The greater will operates through cycles and ages, creating patterns of rise and decline that repeat across vast spans of time. The Frenzied Flame seeks to break this cycle entirely, offering not just another age, but the end of time itself. The influence of both forces on individual consciousness demonstrates their fundamental difference in approach. The greater will works through inspiration, guidance, and the granting of grace to specific individuals. The Frenzied Flame works through infection, spreading from person to person like a cosmic disease that transforms anyone it touches. The philosophical traditions associated with each force reflect their different approaches to existence. The greater will inspires the creation of elaborate theological and legal systems that attempt to understand and codify the proper relationships between different aspects of reality. The Frenzied Flame inspires a radical nihilism that rejects the entire project of understanding and organizing existence. The aesthetic differences between the two forces reveal their fundamental orientations. The greater will is associated with gold, light, and geometric patterns that suggest order and meaning. The Frenzied Flame manifests as chaotic yellow fire that consumes rather than illuminates, destroying the very possibility of pattern and meaning. The question of which force is correct or better cannot be answered simply, as each represents a legitimate response to the fundamental problems of existence. The greater will's order creates meaning and purpose, but also hierarchy and oppression. The Frenzied Flame's chaos offers escape from suffering, but only through the elimination of everything that makes existence worthwhile. The player's choice between these cosmic forces reflects broader questions about how to respond to suffering and injustice in the world. The greater will offers the possibility of reform and improvement within existing structures, while the Frenzied Flame offers the radical solution of starting over from nothing. Neither option is without significant costs and risks. The ultimate irony of the conflict is that both forces may be pursuing the same goal through different means. Both seek to end suffering and create a perfect state of existence. The difference lies in their understanding of what perfection means and what sacrifices are acceptable to achieve it. This fundamental disagreement about means and ends drives the cosmic conflict that defines Elden Ring's universe. The resolution of this conflict, if such a thing is possible, would require a synthesis that transcends both order and chaos, while incorporating the legitimate insights of each. Such a synthesis might involve finding ways to create meaning and purpose without oppressive hierarchy, or discovering forms of unity that don't require the elimination of individual existence. The difficulty of imagining such a synthesis reflects the profound nature of the cosmic problems these forces attempt to address. Chapter 13. The Mechanics of Madness. The Frenzied Flame's power manifests in the world through a complex system of madness that affects both individuals and environments in unique and terrifying ways. Understanding these mechanics provides crucial insight into how cosmic chaos operates on a practical level, transforming abstract philosophical concepts into tangible threats that players must navigate and understand. Madness as a status effect represents one of the most unique and thematically appropriate mechanics in Elden Ring. Unlike other status effects that primarily deal damage or impose temporary debuffs, madness fundamentally alters the relationship between the affected character and the game world. When the madness meter fills completely, the victim doesn't simply take damage. They experience a moment of complete disconnection from reality that reflects the Frenzied Flame's ultimate goal of dissolving individual existence. The visual manifestation of madness buildup reveals important details about how the Frenzied Flame operates. The yellow flame that begins to flicker around affected characters' eyes suggests that madness is not merely a psychological state, but a physical transformation. The flame literally replaces normal perception with cosmic vision, showing the world as the Frenzied Flame sees it, rather than as individual consciousness would naturally perceive it. The mechanics of madness transmission reflect the contagious nature of the Frenzied Flame's influence. Unlike other status effects that require direct physical contact or specific magical attacks, madness can be spread through sight, sound, and proximity. The giant eye near the Church of Inhibition demonstrates this principle, inflicting madness on anyone who looks upon it, regardless of distance or physical barriers. The role of focus as the primary resistance stat for madness creates interesting gameplay implications. Focus represents mental fortitude and the ability to maintain one's sense of self in the face of overwhelming cosmic forces. Characters with high focus can resist madness longer, but no amount of mental strength can provide complete immunity. This reflects the Frenzied Flame's fundamental assertion that individual consciousness is ultimately unsustainable when confronted with cosmic truth. The self-infliction mechanics associated with Frenzied Flame incantations reveal the double-edged nature of channeling cosmic chaos. Users of these powerful spells gradually build up madness in themselves, representing the price of touching forces beyond mortal comprehension. This mechanic ensures that even those who seek to use the flame's power are constantly at risk of being consumed by it. The Howl of Shabriri incantation exemplifies the complex relationship between power and vulnerability that defines madness mechanics. This spell increases the user's damage output, while simultaneously making them more vulnerable to attacks and accelerating their own madness buildup. The trade-off perfectly captures the seductive danger of the Frenzied Flame: great power at the cost of increasing instability. The behavior of NPCs affected by madness provides insight into how the condition affects consciousness and decision-making. Mad characters often speak in fragmented, contradictory ways that suggest their perception of reality has been fundamentally altered. They may see enemies where there are allies, or perceive threats that don't exist, reflecting the flame's ability to distort the very foundations of sensory experience. The environmental effects of prolonged madness exposure demonstrate how the Frenzied Flame can alter physical reality itself. Areas with high concentrations of flame influence show signs of reality distortion, with objects appearing in impossible configurations and natural laws seeming to break down. These reality warps serve as previews of what the world would look like if the flame achieved its ultimate goal. The relationship between madness and pain reveals another crucial aspect of how the Frenzied Flame operates. Many descriptions of madness-inducing attacks mention pain-relieving properties alongside their dangerous effects. This suggests that madness offers a form of escape from suffering, albeit one that comes at the cost of sanity and individual identity. The collective madness experienced by groups like the merchants in the Cathedral of the Forsaken shows how the condition can spread through communities. When multiple individuals are affected simultaneously, their individual madnesses seem to merge and amplify each other, creating a collective consciousness that serves the flame's goals more effectively than any single mad individual could. The temporal aspects of madness reveal its relationship to the Frenzied Flame's broader goals. Victims of madness often report experiences of time distortion, with moments seeming to stretch into eternity or vast periods collapsing into instants. This temporal confusion may represent the flame's attempt to break down the linear progression of time that structures normal existence. The recovery mechanisms for madness, primarily through consumable items like clarifying boluses, suggest that the condition is not always permanent. However, the temporary nature of these cures implies that madness leaves lasting effects even after the immediate symptoms subside. Characters who have experienced madness may be more susceptible to future episodes, creating a progressive vulnerability to the flame's influence. The interaction between madness and other status effects reveals the unique nature of cosmic corruption. While physical ailments like poison or scarlet rot can be healed through conventional means, madness resists many traditional forms of treatment. This resistance reflects the fact that madness operates on a different ontological level than purely physical conditions. The role of music and sound in inducing madness adds another dimension to understanding how the Frenzied Flame spreads its influence. The melancholy songs played by the merchant remnants in the Cathedral of the Forsaken serve as both lament and invitation, drawing listeners into the same despair that originally summoned the flame. This suggests that the flame can use artistic expression as a vector for transmission. The connection between madness and revelation provides insight into the Frenzied Flame's claim to offer truth. Many characters who experience madness report seeing reality more clearly, understanding cosmic truths that were previously hidden from them. Whether these revelations are genuine insights or delusions created by the flame remains ambiguous, reflecting the difficulty of distinguishing between cosmic truth and cosmic deception. The physiological changes associated with advanced madness, such as the removal of eyes to create Shabriri grapes, demonstrate how the condition progresses beyond psychological symptoms to physical transformation. These self-mutilations are performed willingly by victims who no longer distinguish between their physical bodies and their cosmic purpose. The weaponization of madness through specialized equipment and techniques shows how the Frenzied Flame's influence can be channeled and directed. Items like the Frenzied Flame seal allow users to focus and amplify madness-inducing effects, turning the condition from a random affliction into a deliberate tool of cosmic chaos. The relationship between madness and memory reveals another aspect of how the Frenzied Flame alters consciousness. Victims often report difficulty distinguishing between past and present, or between their own memories and those of others. This memory distortion may represent the flame's attempt to break down the individual identity that depends on coherent personal history. The question of whether madness represents liberation or imprisonment remains central to understanding the Frenzied Flame's appeal. From the flame's perspective, madness frees individuals from the illusions and limitations of normal consciousness, allowing them to perceive and participate in cosmic truth. From the perspective of ordered existence, madness represents the loss of everything that makes life meaningful and worthwhile. The mechanics of madness in Elden Ring serve as both gameplay challenge and philosophical statement. They force players to confront questions about the nature of sanity, the value of individual consciousness, and the price of cosmic knowledge. The system's complexity reflects the sophisticated way the game explores these themes, using interactive mechanics to convey ideas that might otherwise remain purely abstract. Chapter 14: The Cultural Impact of the Three Fingers. The influence of the Three Fingers and the Frenzied Flame extends far beyond individual transformation, shaping entire cultures and civilizations throughout the history of the Lands Between and the Realm of Shadow. Understanding this cultural impact requires examining how communities respond to the presence of cosmic chaos, how traditions evolve in response to existential threats, and how the Flame's philosophy spreads through social networks. The formation of flame-touched communities represents one of the most visible cultural impacts of the Three Fingers' influence. These settlements, like the Frenzied Flame village near the Church of Inhibition, develop their own customs, hierarchies, and belief systems centered around their shared connection to cosmic chaos. The villagers' worship of Vyke, followed by their mockery of his failure, demonstrates how communities touched by the flame develop complex relationships with power and disappointment. The architectural changes that occur in areas influenced by the Frenzied Flame reveal how cosmic chaos affects human creativity and construction. Buildings in flame-touched areas often display impossible geometries, structures that seem to defy physical laws, and decorative elements that hurt to look at directly. These architectural anomalies suggest that prolonged exposure to the flame gradually erodes the boundary between what is possible and what is real. The development of flame-specific technologies and crafting techniques represents another aspect of cultural adaptation to cosmic influence. The creation of items like the Frenzied Flame seal and various madness-inducing consumables requires specialized knowledge that can only be developed within communities that have direct experience with the flame's power. This technical expertise becomes a form of cultural capital that distinguishes flame-touched groups from conventional society. The emergence of new forms of artistic expression in flame-influenced communities reflects the cosmic force's impact on human creativity. The endless musical performances of the merchant remnants in the Cathedral of the Forsaken represent a form of art that has been transformed by exposure to cosmic consciousness. These melancholy melodies serve multiple functions. They preserve the memory of the lost civilization, attract new followers to the flame's cause, and provide a form of worship appropriate to cosmic chaos. The modification of traditional religious practices to accommodate the Frenzied Flame's influence demonstrates how established cultures attempt to integrate cosmic forces into existing belief systems. Rather than completely abandoning their previous traditions, many communities modify their rituals and ceremonies to include elements that honor or appease the flame. This syncretistic approach often creates hybrid belief systems that combine aspects of conventional religion with cosmic nihilism. The development of new social hierarchies within flame-touched communities reveals how cosmic influence interacts with human political instincts. Despite the flame's philosophical commitment to eliminating all distinctions, communities under its influence often develop complex ranking systems based on degrees of madness, proximity to cosmic truth, or ability to channel the flame's power. These hierarchies frequently invert conventional social values, elevating suffering and madness above health and sanity. The creation of specialized roles and occupations within flame-influenced societies reflects the practical needs of communities dealing with cosmic forces. Individuals may specialize as flame tenders, madness interpreters, or chaos channelers, developing expertise in managing the practical aspects of living with cosmic influence. These new professions require training and knowledge that would be completely foreign to conventional society. The modification of legal and ethical systems to accommodate the flame's influence represents one of the most challenging aspects of cultural adaptation. Communities touched by cosmic chaos must develop new frameworks for understanding responsibility, punishment, and justice when individual identity becomes fluid and collective consciousness emerges. Traditional concepts of personal accountability become problematic when the boundaries between self and other begin to dissolve. The development of new forms of education and knowledge transmission reflects the need to prepare community members for life under cosmic influence. Children born into flame-touched communities must learn not only conventional skills, but also techniques for managing madness, channeling cosmic forces, and maintaining some form of coherent identity while participating in collective consciousness. This educational challenge often leads to the development of entirely new pedagogical approaches. The impact on family structures and kinship systems reveals how cosmic influence affects the most basic human relationships. The flame's emphasis on collective unity can either strengthen family bonds through shared purpose or dissolve them through the erosion of individual identity. Some communities develop extended kinship networks that include all flame-touched individuals, while others see traditional family structures collapse under the weight of cosmic transformation. The modification of economic systems to function under cosmic influence demonstrates the practical challenges of maintaining civilization while embracing chaos. Traditional concepts of property, ownership, and exchange become problematic when individual identity becomes fluid. Some flame-touched communities develop gift economies based on collective sharing, while others create entirely new forms of value based on degrees of cosmic attunement. The development of new communication methods reflects the challenge of maintaining social coordination when conventional language becomes inadequate for expressing cosmic truths. Some communities develop forms of telepathic or empathic communication that bypass the limitations of words, while others create new vocabularies and grammatical structures designed to express experiences that normal language cannot capture. The impact on gender roles and sexual relationships reveals another dimension of how cosmic influence affects human society. The flame's philosophy of universal unity can either reinforce traditional gender distinctions or dissolve them entirely, depending on how communities interpret the implications of cosmic consciousness. Some flame-touched societies develop completely new approaches to sexuality and reproduction that reflect their transformed understanding of individual identity. The influence on artistic traditions extends beyond music to encompass visual arts, literature, and performance. Flame-touched artists often create works that deliberately induce madness in viewers, using colors, patterns, and compositions that reflect cosmic chaos rather than conventional aesthetic principles. These artworks serve as both expressions of the flame's influence and tools for spreading that influence to others. The development of flame-specific historical narratives and mythologies represents another crucial aspect of cultural transformation. Communities under the Three Fingers influence often reinterpret their past through the lens of cosmic nihilism, creating origin stories that explain their suffering as evidence of existence's fundamental wrongness. These revisionist histories serve to validate the flame's philosophy, while providing meaning for communities that have embraced cosmic chaos. The impact on technological development reveals how cosmic influence affects human innovation and progress. Some flame-touched communities reject technology entirely, viewing it as another form of division and distinction that must be eliminated. Others develop entirely new forms of technology based on principles of cosmic chaos rather than conventional physics, creating devices that operate through madness and impossibility rather than mechanical or magical means. The relationship between flame-touched communities and conventional society often evolves into complex patterns of conflict, cooperation, and mutual incomprehension. The cosmic truth that flame-touched individuals claim to possess makes meaningful communication with outsiders increasingly difficult, while their behavior often appears threatening or incomprehensible to those who haven't experienced the flame's influence. The seasonal and cyclical aspects of flame influence create temporal patterns that shape community life in unique ways. Some communities experience periods of increased cosmic activity that correspond to astronomical events or anniversaries of significant flame-related incidents. These cycles become incorporated into community calendars and ritual practices, creating temporal frameworks that differ significantly from conventional seasonal patterns. The development of flame-specific healing practices reflects communities' attempts to manage the physical and psychological effects of cosmic influence. Rather than trying to cure madness, these practices often focus on channeling it productively or helping individuals achieve more complete transformation. The distinction between healing and corruption becomes blurred when the goal is not the restoration of conventional health, but the achievement of cosmic unity. The impact on childhood development and coming-of-age practices reveals how cosmic influence affects the fundamental processes of human maturation. Children born into flame-touched communities often display unusual development patterns, with some showing early signs of cosmic awareness while others seem resistant to the flame's influence. Communities develop specialized rituals and practices to help young people navigate the transition from individual consciousness to cosmic participation. The role of memory and forgetting in flame-touched communities becomes increasingly complex as collective consciousness develops. The preservation of pre-flame cultural traditions conflicts with the flame's goal of eliminating all distinctions and divisions. Some communities struggle to maintain their historical identity while embracing cosmic transformation, while others deliberately forget their past as part of their commitment to the flame's vision. The development of new forms of conflict resolution reflects the challenge of maintaining social order when conventional authority structures become meaningless. Flame-touched communities often develop consensus-based decision-making processes that rely on collective cosmic insight rather than individual judgment. These new governance systems reflect the flame's emphasis on unity while attempting to address practical problems of resource allocation and dispute resolution. The impact on agricultural and food production practices reveals how cosmic influence affects even the most basic survival needs. Some flame-touched communities develop farming techniques that incorporate elements of cosmic chaos, attempting to grow crops that reflect the flame's transformative power. Others reject agriculture entirely, viewing the cultivation of food as another form of division between human and natural that must be eliminated. The influence on linguistic development creates fascinating examples of how language evolves under cosmic pressure. Flame-touched communities often develop new vocabularies for describing experiences that conventional language cannot capture, while simultaneously losing words for concepts that the flame's philosophy renders meaningless. The resulting linguistic changes reflect the community's transformed relationship with reality itself. The development of flame-specific burial and death practices demonstrates how cosmic influence affects even the most fundamental human experiences. Traditional concepts of individual death become problematic when consciousness is understood to be collective rather than personal. Some communities develop rituals that celebrate the dissolution of individual identity into cosmic unity, while others struggle to maintain meaningful mourning practices in the face of the flame's transformative power. The impact on trade and exchange relationships with conventional society reveals the practical challenges of maintaining economic connections across cosmic divides. Flame-touched communities often find that their transformed understanding of value and meaning makes conventional commerce impossible, while their unusual products and services may be either highly sought after or completely rejected by conventional society. The role of prophecy and divination in flame-touched communities reflects their unique relationship with time and causality. The flame's cosmic perspective often grants its followers insights into future events, but these prophecies are frequently expressed in terms that are incomprehensible to conventional understanding. The interpretation of cosmic visions becomes a specialized skill that shapes community decision-making and long-term planning. The development of flame-specific military and defensive practices demonstrates how cosmic influence affects communities' ability to protect themselves from external threats. Some communities develop combat techniques that incorporate madness and chaos as weapons, while others rely on their cosmic awareness to avoid conflicts entirely. The challenge of organizing effective defense while maintaining commitment to the flame's unifying philosophy creates complex strategic problems. The influence on medical and health practices reveals how cosmic transformation affects basic concepts of wellness and disease. Traditional medicine often becomes ineffective in treating conditions related to cosmic influence, forcing communities to develop entirely new approaches to health that incorporate elements of madness and chaos. The distinction between sickness and enlightenment becomes increasingly blurred as cosmic transformation progresses. Chapter 15. The Shadow's Expansion. The shadow of the Erdtree expansion has fundamentally altered our understanding of the Frenzied Flame's scope and influence, revealing that its reach extends far beyond the lands between into the mysterious realm of shadow. This expansion of lore has provided crucial context for understanding how cosmic chaos operates across different cultures, time periods, and geographical locations, painting a picture of the flame's influence as a truly universal force. The Abyssal Woods represent perhaps the most complete manifestation of the Frenzied Flame's environmental influence ever depicted in the franchise. Unlike the isolated pockets of madness found in the base game, the Abyssal Woods show what happens when an entire ecosystem falls under the flame's sway. The twisted trees, impossible shadows, and reality-warping effects create an environment that exists partially outside normal space and time. The discovery of Midra's manse hidden within the Abyssal Woods reveals the existence of entire communities dedicated to studying and embracing the Frenzied Flame, long before its manifestation in the lands between. This prehistory of flame worship suggests that the cosmic force has been influencing mortal civilization for far longer than previously understood, with multiple attempts at creating Lords of Frenzied Flame occurring across different ages and locations. The Inquisition that persecuted Midra and his followers provides crucial insight into how established authorities attempt to combat the Frenzied Flame's influence. The aging Untouchables, transformed remnants of this Inquisition, demonstrate the futility of fighting cosmic chaos with conventional violence. Their transformation from hunters of the flame-touched into servants of the very force they sought to destroy illustrates the recursive nature of the flame's corruption. The introduction of new Frenzied Flame incantations and weapons in the DLC reveals the evolution of the flame's manifestations over time. Midra's Flame of Frenzy represents a more sophisticated and powerful expression of cosmic chaos than anything found in the base game, suggesting that the flame's influence grows more potent as it spreads across space and time. These new manifestations provide glimpses of what the flame might eventually become if left unchecked. The connection between the realm of shadow and the lands between through the Frenzied Flame's influence suggests that cosmic forces operate on scales that transcend individual worlds or dimensions. The flame's ability to bridge these realms indicates that its ultimate goal of universal annihilation extends beyond any single reality, encompassing all possible forms of existence across multiple planes of being. The presence of Shabriri grapes and their evolution into swollen grapes within the realm of shadow demonstrates how the flame's influence adapts to different environments while maintaining its core characteristics. These transformed artifacts suggest that the flame learns and evolves as it spreads, developing new strategies for corruption and transformation based on the specific conditions it encounters in each realm. The discovery of new flame-touch communities and their unique cultural adaptations reveals the diversity of responses to cosmic chaos across different societies. Each community's approach to embracing or resisting the flame provides insight into how human nature interacts with cosmic forces, showing that there is no single path to either salvation or damnation when confronting universal chaos. The temporal displacement experienced in the realm of shadow, where events from different ages seem to occur simultaneously, reflects the Frenzied Flame's complex relationship with time itself. This temporal confusion suggests that the flame's influence operates outside normal causality, creating pockets of existence where past, present, and future become meaningless distinctions. The role of Nanaya in Midra's story introduces themes of love and sacrifice that complicate our understanding of the Frenzied Flame's appeal. Her influence on Midra's transformation, particularly her final command to endure, suggests that the Flame's philosophy can be shaped by personal relationships and individual emotions in ways that transcend its cosmic scope. The architectural impossibilities found throughout the realm of Shadow's flame-touched areas demonstrate how prolonged exposure to cosmic chaos affects the physical laws that govern reality. Buildings that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, rooms that are larger inside than outside, and structures that change configuration based on the observer's mental state, all point to the Flame's ability to rewrite the fundamental rules of existence. The introduction of new enemy types like the aging Untouchables reveals the long-term consequences of attempting to fight the Frenzied Flame through conventional means. These creatures' unique vulnerability to parrying attacks suggests that combating cosmic chaos requires precise timing and perfect understanding rather than brute force, reflecting the Flame's tendency to turn aggression against itself. The discovery of ancient texts and artifacts related to the Frenzied Flame provides glimpses into the cosmic force's true origins and ultimate goals. These fragmentary records suggest that the Flame has been influencing reality since the beginning of recorded history, with each manifestation building towards some ultimate cosmic event that transcends individual worlds or ages. The relationship between the Frenzied Flame and other cosmic forces in the realm of Shadow reveals the complex ecology of cosmic influence that operates beyond mortal perception. The Flame's interactions with the forces of shadow, death, and transformation suggest that cosmic chaos is just one element in a vast network of universal powers, each pursuing its own agenda while responding to the influence of others. The environmental storytelling techniques used throughout the flame-touched areas of the DLC demonstrate From Software's evolving approach to conveying cosmic horror through interactive media. The subtle details, hidden connections, and atmospheric effects work together to create a sense of creeping dread that builds as players explore deeper into the Flame's domain. The introduction of new lore regarding the Flame's relationship to suffering and persecution provides additional context for understanding its appeal to marginalized communities. The pattern of persecution followed by flame manifestation appears to be universal, suggesting that cosmic chaos feeds on injustice and oppression, regardless of the specific cultural context in which these occur. The discovery of flame-touched artworks and cultural artifacts reveals how cosmic influence shapes creative expression across different societies. These alien aesthetics and impossible artistic techniques provide insight into how consciousness changes when exposed to cosmic truth, showing the transformation of human creativity under the influence of universal chaos. The expansion's treatment of time and memory in flame-touched areas demonstrates the cosmic force's ability to manipulate fundamental aspects of existence. Characters and locations that seem to exist outside normal temporal flow suggest that the Flame's ultimate goal involves not just the destruction of space, but the elimination of time itself. The new connections revealed between characters and events in the base game and the DLC create a more complete picture of the Frenzied Flame's influence across the entire Elden Ring universe. These connections suggest that seemingly isolated incidents of flame manifestation are actually part of a larger cosmic pattern that spans multiple worlds and ages. The introduction of new flame-specific consumables and crafting materials reveals the practical aspects of living in areas dominated by cosmic chaos. These items demonstrate how communities adapt to the presence of universal destruction, developing tools and techniques that allow them to function despite the reality-warping effects of the Flame's influence. The psychological horror elements introduced in the DLC's flame-touched areas represent a new level of cosmic terror in From Software's catalog. The combination of environmental storytelling, atmospheric design, and gameplay mechanics creates an experience that effectively conveys the existential dread that accompanies exposure to cosmic truth. The expansion's exploration of failed transformation and incomplete cosmic influence provides crucial insight into the flame's limitations and requirements. Not every attempt to embrace cosmic chaos succeeds, and the reasons for these failures reveal important truths about the relationship between individual consciousness and universal forces. Chapter 16. The Player's Choice. The decision to pursue the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending represents one of the most psychologically complex choices available to players in any From Software game. Unlike other endings that can be achieved through political maneuvering or power accumulation, the path to cosmic chaos requires players to actively choose destruction over creation, despair over hope, and universal annihilation over any form of continued existence. The psychological journey that leads players to consider the Frenzied Flame ending often begins with frustration at the injustices and cruelties encountered throughout the lands between. After witnessing the persecution of omens, the exploitation of misbegotten, the corruption of nobles, and countless other examples of systemic oppression, some players find themselves sympathetic to the Flame's promise of ending all suffering through universal destruction. The game's presentation of Shabriri's temptation is particularly insidious because it appeals to the player's compassion rather than their ambition. The offer to save Melina from her sacrificial fate by taking her place as kindling speaks to the protective instincts that many players develop toward their companions. This emotional manipulation demonstrates how the Frenzied Flame corrupts virtue into vice, using love as a pathway to cosmic destruction. The mechanical requirements for achieving the Frenzied Flame ending force players to actively participate in morally questionable acts throughout their journey. Feeding Shabriri grapes to Hyetta, despite knowing their true nature as plucked eyes, requires players to choose, enabling another's corruption over refusing to participate. These small compromises accumulate over time, gradually desensitizing players to the moral implications of their choices. The environmental storytelling encountered during the journey to the Three Fingers provides constant reminders of the consequences of choosing cosmic chaos. The corpses of the Great Caravan, the mad remnants of the merchant civilization, and the reality distortions caused by prolonged flame exposure all serve as warnings about what the player is choosing to embrace. The physical challenge of reaching the Three Fingers, particularly the notorious platforming sequence in the Cathedral of the Forsaken, serves as a final test of the player's commitment to their chosen path. The repeated failures and deaths that most players experience during this section mirror the persistence required to truly embrace the Frenzied Flame's philosophy, forcing them to actively work for their damnation. The requirement to remove all equipment before approaching the Three Fingers creates a moment of vulnerability that reflects the philosophical nakedness required to embrace cosmic chaos. This stripping away of worldly possessions forces players to confront their choice without the comfort of familiar tools and defenses, emphasizing the finality and significance of what they are about to do. The actual encounter with the Three Fingers provides one of the most memorable and disturbing moments in the entire game. The alien entity's touch leaves permanent marks on the player character that cannot be hidden or removed through normal means, serving as a constant reminder of the choice that has been made and the path that must now be followed. The immediate consequences of inheriting the Frenzied Flame create a fundamental shift in the player's relationship with the game world. Melina's abandonment of the player, declaring them no longer fit, represents the severing of all connections to the world of grace and order. This rejection by one of the few genuinely sympathetic characters in the game emphasizes the isolation that comes with choosing cosmic chaos. The visual transformation of the player character, with flames replacing their eyes, serves as a constant reminder of their altered state. This change is visible to other players in multiplayer encounters, marking the flame bearer as something fundamentally different from ordinary tarnished. The aesthetic appeal of these burning eyes creates a seductive element that can make the transformation seem desirable despite its horrific implications. The gameplay implications of carrying the Frenzied Flame create interesting mechanical tensions that reflect the philosophical conflicts inherent in the choice. The player gains access to powerful new abilities, while simultaneously becoming locked out of other ending paths, creating a sense of both empowerment and limitation that mirrors the flame's promise of liberation through destruction. The community reactions to players who choose the Frenzied Flame ending reveal interesting patterns in how different people respond to nihilistic philosophies. Some players embrace the role of cosmic destroyer with enthusiasm, role-playing as agents of universal chaos. Others struggle with the moral implications of their choice, seeking ways to justify or mitigate the consequences of universal annihilation. The availability of Miquella's needle as a means of reversing the Frenzied Flame's influence creates an additional layer of complexity in the player's choice. Knowing that the decision can be undone with sufficient effort changes the psychological weight of embracing cosmic chaos, potentially making it seem like a temporary experiment rather than a permanent commitment to universal destruction. The different variations of the Frenzied Flame ending, depending on when the player embraces the three fingers, demonstrate how timing affects the meaning and impact of choices. The decision to save Melina by becoming the Flame's agent before her sacrifice creates a different emotional context than embracing chaos after she has already died, reflecting how the sequence of events shapes the moral significance of our actions. The philosophical questions raised by the Frenzied Flame ending force players to confront fundamental assumptions about existence, suffering, and the value of life itself. The Flame's argument that universal destruction is preferable to continued suffering cannot be easily dismissed, particularly in a world as cruel and unjust as the lands between. The role of player agency in determining the fate of an entire universe creates unprecedented moral responsibility within the context of a video game. Unlike choices that affect only specific characters or regions, the decision to become Lord of Frenzied Flame carries consequences for all existence, making it perhaps the most significant choice possible in any medium. The community discussions and debates surrounding the Frenzied Flame ending reveal how interactive media can effectively engage with complex philosophical questions. Players bring their own experiences with suffering, injustice, and despair to their interpretation of the Flame's appeal, creating diverse perspectives on what might otherwise be seen as a simple choice between good and evil. The psychological impact of actually completing the Frenzied Flame ending varies significantly among players. Some report feeling satisfied with the cosmic justice of universal destruction, while others experience genuine distress at the elimination of all existence. These varied reactions demonstrate the personal nature of philosophical choices and the way individual psychology shapes moral reasoning. The relationship between player motivation and character motivation creates interesting questions about identification and responsibility. When players choose the Frenzied Flame ending for mechanical reasons, such as wanting to see all possible conclusions or earn specific achievements, they may find themselves unexpectedly affected by the emotional weight of their character's transformation. The long-term memory of choosing the Frenzied Flame ending often influences players' subsequent playthroughs and character builds. Many report being drawn to flame-themed equipment and abilities even when not pursuing the cosmic chaos ending, suggesting that the psychological impact of embracing universal destruction persists beyond individual gameplay sessions. The educational value of the Frenzied Flame choice extends beyond entertainment to provide genuine insight into nihilistic philosophies and their appeal. By allowing players to experience the seductive logic of cosmic destruction firsthand, the game creates opportunities for reflection on real-world responses to suffering and injustice. The artistic achievement represented by the Frenzied Flame ending demonstrates the unique potential of interactive media to explore complex philosophical questions. By requiring active participation in the choice to destroy all existence, the game creates a form of engagement with nihilistic philosophy that passive media cannot match. The ultimate significance of the player's choice to embrace or reject the Frenzied Flame extends beyond the confines of the game to reflect broader questions about how individuals respond to overwhelming suffering and apparent meaninglessness. The cosmic scope of the decision serves as a metaphor for the everyday choices we make about whether to create or destroy, hope or despair, in the face of an often cruel and senseless world. Chapter 17. Comparative Mythology and Real-World Parallels. The Lord of Frenzied Flame and its associated mythology draw upon a rich tapestry of real-world, religious, philosophical, and mythological traditions that span cultures and centuries. Understanding these connections provides deeper insight into the universal themes that From Software has woven into their cosmic horror narrative, revealing how ancient human concerns about existence, suffering, and meaning continue to resonate in contemporary interactive media. The three fingers relationship to the two fingers immediately evokes dualistic religious traditions found throughout human history. The conflict between order and chaos, creation and destruction, light and darkness appears in countless mythological systems, from Zoroastrian concepts of cosmic dualism to the yin-yang philosophy of Taoism. The numerical symbolism of 2 versus 3 fingers suggests an imbalance in cosmic forces, with the 3 fingers representing an excess or overflow that threatens established harmony. The figure of Shabriri draws explicit inspiration from Jewish folklore, where Shabriri appears as a demon of blindness who dwells in uncovered water. This mythological reference reinforces themes of sight, blindness, and the dangerous knowledge that comes with perceiving cosmic truth. The transformation of a folkloric demon into a herald of universal destruction demonstrates how From Software adapts traditional mythology to serve contemporary philosophical exploration. The Frenzied Flame's promise to eliminate all suffering through universal annihilation echoes certain interpretations of Buddhist philosophy, particularly concepts related to the ending of suffering through the elimination of desire and attachment. However, the flame takes these ideas to an extreme logical conclusion, arguing that only the complete elimination of existence itself can truly end suffering. This represents a kind of nihilistic Buddhism that rejects even the possibility of enlightened existence. The concept of the One Great, from which all things emerged, resonates with various creation mythologies and philosophical systems that posit an original unity from which diversity emerged. Neoplatonic philosophy speaks of emanation from the One, while Hindu concepts of Brahman describe an ultimate reality from which all apparent diversity springs. The Frenzied Flame's desire to return to this primordial unity through destruction reflects a pessimistic interpretation of these mystical traditions. The persecution of the Great Caravan and their subsequent summoning of cosmic destruction parallels numerous historical instances of religious persecution and martyrdom. The transformation of victims into agents of cosmic revenge reflects themes found in apocalyptic literature, where the oppressed are promised ultimate vindication through divine destruction of their oppressors. This pattern appears in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic eschatology, as well as in various revolutionary movements throughout history. The figure of Midra as a failed Lord of Frenzied Flame who endures centuries of suffering echoes myths of eternal punishment and endurance found across cultures. His situation parallels figures like Prometheus in Greek mythology, condemned to eternal suffering for transgressing cosmic order, or various Buddhist and Hindu concepts of beings trapped in cycles of suffering due to incomplete spiritual development. The madness that spreads through exposure to cosmic truth reflects themes found in cosmic horror literature, particularly the works of H.P. Lovecraft. The idea that human consciousness is fundamentally incompatible with ultimate reality, and that exposure to cosmic truth inevitably leads to insanity, represents a modern interpretation of ancient Gnostic themes about the dangerous nature of forbidden knowledge. The collective consciousness experienced by those touched by the Frenzied Flame resonates with various mystical traditions that speak of the dissolution of individual identity into universal awareness. However, where traditional mysticism often presents this dissolution as enlightenment or liberation. The Frenzied Flame portrays it as a form of cosmic horror that eliminates everything meaningful about individual existence. The theme of cosmic cycles and the ending of ages appears throughout world mythology, from Hindu concepts of cosmic destruction and renewal to Norse Ragnarok and various Mesopotamian flood myths. The Frenzied Flame ending represents an extreme version of these cyclical destruction myths, offering not renewal, but terminal ending that forecloses all possibility of future cycles. The environmental transformation of areas touched by the Frenzied Flame reflects shamanic and animistic traditions that understand landscape as capable of being spiritually infected or corrupted. The idea that cosmic forces can physically alter the environment to reflect their influence appears in various indigenous traditions, though typically with more positive connotations than the reality warping effects of cosmic chaos. The practice of eye removal to create Shabriri grapes echoes various ascetic and mystical traditions that involve self-mutilation as a path to spiritual insight. The plucking out of eyes specifically resonates with Christian traditions about eliminating sources of temptation, though twisted here into a means of achieving cosmic communion rather than moral purity. The figure of Vyke as a noble hero corrupted by cosmic forces reflects archetypal patterns found throughout world literature and mythology. The tragic hero who falls from grace due to a fundamental character flaw appears in Greek tragedy, Shakespearean drama, and countless other narrative traditions. Vyke's corruption through love and the desire to protect others adds layers of moral complexity to this ancient pattern. The concept of cosmic justice through universal destruction resonates with various apocalyptic traditions that promise ultimate resolution of worldly injustices through divine intervention. However, the Frenzied Flame's version of cosmic justice is more radical than most traditional apocalypses, offering not judgment and reward, but complete elimination as the only true solution to suffering and injustice. The idea that existence itself is a mistake to be corrected appears in certain Gnostic traditions and philosophical systems, particularly some interpretations of Schopenhauer's pessimistic philosophy. The argument that non-existence is preferable to existence, and that consciousness is essentially suffering, reflects pessimistic philosophical traditions that have appeared throughout human history. The transformation of persecutors into servants of the very force they sought to destroy, as seen with the aging untouchables, reflects ironic justice themes found throughout world folklore and literature. This pattern of cosmic reversal, where those who commit injustices become victims of the forces they unleashed, appears in various morality tales and religious traditions. The use of music and artistic expression to spread cosmic influence echoes various traditions about the power of art to transmit spiritual or mystical experiences. The dangerous music of the merchant remnants reflects ancient fears about the power of certain artistic expressions to corrupt or transform consciousness, themes found in everything from Greek myths about the power of music to contemporary fears about subliminal messaging. The temporal distortions associated with the Frenzied Flame reflect mystical traditions about the nature of time and eternity. Various contemplative traditions speak of experiences where normal temporal flow is suspended or altered, though typically in contexts of spiritual elevation rather than cosmic horror. The philosophical appeal of the Frenzied Flame to those who have experienced great suffering resonates with various existentialist and nihilistic philosophical traditions that emerge from confrontations with meaninglessness and absurdity. The flame's offer of escape through destruction reflects one possible response to existential crisis, though taken to an extreme that most philosophical traditions would reject. The community formation around shared cosmic experience reflects various religious and cult dynamics found throughout human history. The development of alternative belief systems and social structures in response to contact with cosmic forces parallels the formation of new religious movements, mystery schools, and esoteric communities across cultures and time periods. The ultimate question posed by the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending whether universal destruction is preferable to continued existence in an imperfect world, represents one of the most fundamental philosophical challenges that humans have grappled with throughout history. The interactive nature of the game medium allows players to explore this question in ways that pure philosophy or passive media cannot match, creating opportunities for experiential engagement with ideas that might otherwise remain purely abstract. Chapter 18: Legacy and Implications. As we reach the conclusion of our deep exploration into the Lord of Frenzied Flame, it becomes essential to examine the lasting impact and broader implications of this cosmic force within the world of Elden Ring and beyond. The Frenzied Flame represents more than just an alternative ending or philosophical curiosity. It embodies fundamental questions about existence, meaning, and the nature of consciousness that extend far beyond the confines of any single game or narrative. The artistic achievement represented by the Frenzied Flame storyline demonstrates the unique potential of interactive media to explore complex philosophical and existential themes. By requiring players to actively participate in the choice to embrace cosmic destruction, From Software has created a form of engagement with nihilistic philosophy that passive media cannot replicate. This participatory element transforms abstract philosophical concepts into lived experience, allowing players to understand the seductive appeal of universal destruction in ways that purely theoretical exploration cannot provide. The psychological impact of the Frenzied Flame ending on players reveals the power of well-crafted interactive narratives to generate genuine emotional and intellectual responses. Many players report being genuinely disturbed by the implications of their choice, even within the fictional context of the game world. This emotional resonance demonstrates how effective storytelling can use fantastical elements to illuminate real-world concerns about suffering, meaning, and the value of existence. The community discussions and debates generated by the Frenzied Flame ending have created a form of collective philosophical inquiry that extends the game's exploration of existential themes into real-world discourse. Players engage with questions about the nature of suffering, the possibility of meaning in an apparently meaningless universe, and the ethics of existence itself. These discussions demonstrate how interactive media can serve as a catalyst for broader philosophical engagement. The influence of the Frenzied Flame on subsequent game development and narrative design may prove to be one of its most significant legacies. The success of this cosmic horror storyline has shown that audiences are willing to engage with challenging philosophical content when it is presented through compelling interactive experiences. This may encourage other developers to explore similarly complex themes in their own work. The educational value of the Frenzied Flame storyline extends beyond entertainment to provide genuine insight into various philosophical traditions and their contemporary relevance. Students of philosophy, religion, and comparative mythology can find in the game's narrative a practical exploration of concepts that might otherwise remain purely academic. The interactive nature of the experience makes abstract ideas concrete and personally relevant. The therapeutic implications of engaging with cosmic horror themes in a controlled, fictional environment may also prove significant. For individuals struggling with depression, existential anxiety, or feelings of meaninglessness, the opportunity to explore these themes through interactive narrative might provide both catharsis and perspective. The game's ultimate suggestion that even cosmic despair can be overcome through tools like Miquella's Needle offers hope alongside horror. The technical achievements in presenting cosmic horror through environmental storytelling, atmospheric design, and interactive mechanics have established new standards for how abstract philosophical concepts can be conveyed through game design. The Abyssal Woods, the Cathedral of the Forsaken, and other flame-touched locations demonstrate how environmental design can effectively communicate existential dread and cosmic significance. The narrative structure that allows players to experience, explore, and ultimately reject nihilistic philosophy represents a sophisticated approach to engaging with dangerous ideas. By providing Miquella's Needle as a means of escape from the Frenzied Flame's influence, the game acknowledges both the appeal and the ultimate inadequacy of nihilistic solutions to existential problems. The global cultural impact of the Frenzied Flame storyline demonstrates how interactive media can transcend cultural and linguistic boundaries to engage with universal human concerns. Players from diverse backgrounds have found meaning and significance in the cosmic horror narrative, suggesting that the themes it explores are genuinely universal rather than culturally specific. The influence on academic discourse about interactive media and narrative design has been substantial, with the Frenzied Flame storyline serving as a case study for how games can effectively explore complex philosophical themes. Scholars in game studies, philosophy, and comparative literature have used the narrative as an example of the unique potential of interactive media to engage with challenging intellectual content. The preservation of the Frenzied Flame storyline through community archiving, discussion, and analysis ensures that its philosophical insights will continue to be available for future examination and interpretation. The detailed documentation of every aspect of the narrative by dedicated fans creates a permanent record of this significant achievement in interactive storytelling. The inspiration provided to other creative works, from fan fiction to independent games to academic research, demonstrates the generative power of well-crafted cosmic horror narratives. The Frenzied Flame has become a touchstone for discussions about nihilism, existentialism, and the nature of cosmic horror in contemporary media. The challenge posed to traditional narrative structures and expectations has influenced how other developers approach storytelling in interactive media. The willingness to offer genuinely disturbing and philosophically challenging content as a legitimate ending option has expanded the boundaries of what interactive narratives can explore and accomplish. The demonstration that audiences are capable of engaging with complex philosophical content when it is presented through compelling interactive experiences may encourage greater ambition in game narrative design. The success of the Frenzied Flame storyline proves that players are willing to grapple with difficult questions about existence and meaning when given the proper framework for exploration. The contribution to broader cultural conversations about mental health, existential anxiety, and the search for meaning in contemporary life has been significant. The game's exploration of how individuals respond to overwhelming suffering and apparent meaninglessness provides insight into real-world psychological and philosophical challenges. The establishment of new vocabulary and conceptual frameworks for discussing cosmic horror in interactive media has influenced critical discourse about games and their potential for serious artistic expression. Terms and concepts drawn from the Frenzied Flame narrative have entered broader discussions about how interactive media can explore profound themes. The proof of concept for using interactive media to explore dangerous or challenging philosophical ideas in a responsible way has implications for education, therapy, and artistic expression. The game demonstrates how fictional frameworks can provide safe spaces for exploring ideas that might be harmful or disturbing in real-world contexts. The long-term influence on player psychology and worldview may prove to be one of the most significant aspects of the Frenzied Flame's legacy. Many players report that engaging with the cosmic horror narrative has influenced their thinking about existence, suffering, and meaning in lasting ways that extend beyond their gaming experience. The creation of a new mythology that speaks to contemporary concerns about meaninglessness, environmental destruction, and social collapse has given the Frenzied Flame storyline relevance beyond its immediate fictional context. The cosmic horror it depicts resonates with real-world anxieties about the future of humanity and the planet. Conclusion: the eternal flame. And so concludes our deep dive into the terrifying and magnificent mythology of the Lord of Frenzied Flame. We've journeyed through the maddening depths of the Cathedral of the Forsaken, witnessed the tragic transformation of failed lords like Vyke and Midra, and explored the philosophical implications of choosing universal destruction over continued existence in an imperfect world. The Frenzied Flame stands as perhaps the most psychologically complex and philosophically challenging force in all of From Software's catalogue. Its promise of ending all suffering through the complete elimination of existence represents the ultimate expression of cosmic nihilism. Yet its appeal to love, compassion, and the desire to protect others reveals the seductive power of even the most destructive philosophies. From Shabriri's first corruption in ancient times to the player's potential ascension as Lord of Frenzied Flame, we've seen how cosmic chaos spreads through individuals and communities, transforming virtue into vice and hope into despair. The Great Caravan's tragic summoning, Vyke's noble failure, and Midra's centuries of endurance all demonstrate the Flame's ability to turn the best aspects of humanity against itself. Yet we've also discovered hope in the form of Miquella's needle, proof that even the influence of cosmic chaos can be resisted and overcome through determination, knowledge, and the support of others. The needle's existence suggests that no choice, no matter how final it might seem, is truly irreversible for those willing to seek redemption. The shadow of the Erdtree expansion has revealed the true scope of the Frenzied Flame's influence, showing how cosmic chaos operates across multiple realms and time periods. The abyssal woods in Midra's manse demonstrate that the flame's reach extends far beyond the lands between, revealing a cosmic force that operates on scales beyond any single world or reality. The mechanics of madness, the cultural transformations of flame-touched communities, and the environmental corruption of entire ecosystems all demonstrate how cosmic chaos manifests in practical, observable ways. These systems show us that the Frenzied Flame is not merely an abstract philosophical concept, but a tangible force that reshapes everything it touches according to its nihilistic vision. The player's choice to embrace or reject the Three Fingers represents one of the most significant moral decisions possible in any medium. By requiring active participation in the choice to destroy all existence, the game creates a form of engagement with nihilistic philosophy that forces genuine consideration of its appeal and implications. The weight of this choice extends beyond the fictional world to challenge players' real-world assumptions about existence, suffering, and meaning. The comparative mythology and real-world parallels we've explored reveal how the Frenzied Flame draws upon universal human concerns that have persisted across cultures and centuries. From ancient creation myths to contemporary existential philosophy, the themes embodied by the cosmic chaos resonate with fundamental questions about the nature of existence and the possibility of meaning in an apparently meaningless universe. Perhaps most importantly, we've seen how the Frenzied Flame serves as both warning and mirror, reflecting our own capacity for despair while demonstrating the seductive appeal of nihilistic solutions to overwhelming problems. The flame's corruption of virtue into vice, its transformation of love into madness, and its promise of peace through annihilation all speak to very real psychological and philosophical challenges that individuals face when confronted with suffering and injustice. The legacy of the Lord of Frenzied Flame extends far beyond the confines of Elden Ring to influence discussions about interactive media's potential for exploring complex philosophical themes. The narrative demonstrates that video games can serve as more than entertainment, functioning as vehicles for serious artistic and intellectual expression that engage with the most profound questions of human existence. The technical and artistic achievements represented by the Frenzied Flame storyline have established new standards for how cosmic horror can be effectively conveyed through interactive media. From the environmental storytelling of the abyssal woods to the mechanical integration of madness as a status effect, every aspect of the Flame's presentation reinforces its thematic significance and emotional impact. The community discussions and philosophical debates generated by the cosmic chaos narrative demonstrate how well-crafted interactive experiences can serve as catalysts for broader intellectual engagement. Players have grappled with questions about the nature of suffering, the possibility of meaning, and the ethics of existence itself, creating a form of collective philosophical inquiry that extends the game's exploration of these themes into real-world discourse. The therapeutic and educational implications of engaging with cosmic horror themes in a controlled, fictional environment may prove to be among the most significant aspects of the Frenzied Flame's legacy. The opportunity to explore dangerous philosophical ideas safely, to experience the appeal of nihilistic solutions while ultimately recognizing their inadequacy, provides valuable insight into the human condition and our responses to existential challenges. As we've seen throughout our exploration, the Frenzied Flame represents both the ultimate expression of despair and the ultimate test of hope. Its promise of ending all suffering through universal destruction appeals to our deepest fears about meaninglessness and injustice. Yet its ultimate failure to provide genuine resolution reveals the bankruptcy of nihilistic solutions to existential problems. The flame's corruption of noble intentions into cosmic destruction serves as a warning about how despair can transform virtue into vice, how the desire to end suffering can become a justification for causing even greater harm. Yet the existence of alternatives like Miquella's needle demonstrates that no corruption is absolute, no choice irreversible for those willing to seek redemption. The cosmic scope of the Frenzied Flame's vision forces us to confront questions about the ultimate nature and value of existence itself. In a universe where suffering seems inevitable and meaning appears absent, the Flame's solution of universal annihilation can seem almost reasonable. Yet the very fact that we can recognize this appeal and choose to reject it suggests that consciousness itself, with all its capacity for suffering, also possesses the potential for transcendence. The artistic achievement represented by the Frenzied Flame storyline demonstrates the unique power of interactive media to create genuine philosophical engagement through experiential learning. By allowing players to explore the consequences of cosmic nihilism through direct participation, the game creates understanding that pure theory cannot provide. The emotional and intellectual impact of choosing universal destruction, even in a fictional context, illuminates the real-world appeal and danger of nihilistic philosophies. The technical innovation in presenting cosmic horror through environmental design, atmospheric storytelling, and mechanical integration has created new possibilities for how abstract philosophical concepts can be conveyed through game design. The abyssal woods, with their reality-warping effects and impossible geometries, demonstrate how interactive environments can effectively communicate existential dread and cosmic significance. The narrative structure that allows players to experience, explore, and ultimately transcend nihilistic philosophy represents a sophisticated approach to engaging with dangerous ideas. Rather than simply condemning or celebrating cosmic chaos, the game allows full exploration of its appeal while providing tools for escape and redemption. This balanced approach acknowledges the genuine psychological and philosophical challenges that drive individuals toward nihilistic solutions while demonstrating their ultimate inadequacy. The global cultural impact of the Frenzied Flame narrative reveals how interactive media can transcend cultural and linguistic boundaries to engage with universal human concerns. Players from diverse backgrounds have found meaning and relevance in the cosmic horror storyline, suggesting that the themes it explores touch on fundamental aspects of the human condition that cross cultural divides. The influence on academic discourse about interactive media, philosophy, and narrative design has been substantial and lasting. The Frenzied Flame storyline serves as a case study for how games can effectively explore complex philosophical themes while maintaining emotional engagement and artistic integrity. Scholars continue to examine the narrative's techniques and implications, contributing to broader understanding of interactive media's potential for serious artistic expression. The preservation of the storyline through community documentation, analysis, and discussion ensures that its philosophical insights will remain available for future examination and interpretation. The detailed exploration of every aspect of the narrative by dedicated fans and scholars creates a permanent record of this significant achievement in interactive storytelling. The inspiration provided to other creative works, from independent games to academic research, to artistic expression demonstrates the generative power of well-crafted cosmic horror narratives. The Frenzied Flame has become a touchstone for discussions about nihilism, existentialism, and the nature of cosmic horror in contemporary media, influencing creators across multiple disciplines and mediums. As we conclude our journey through the maddening depths of cosmic chaos, we're left with profound questions about the nature of existence, suffering, and meaning that extend far beyond the fictional world of Elden Ring. The Frenzied Flame forces us to confront our own capacity for despair while challenging us to find reasons for hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. The ultimate message of the Lord of Frenzied Flame may be that even in a universe where cosmic forces offer easy solutions to existential problems, the choice to continue existing, to continue struggling for meaning and beauty in an imperfect world, represents the most profound act of defiance and hope possible. The flame's promise of peace through annihilation may be seductive, but the simple act of choosing to live, to love, and to create in spite of suffering represents a victory that no cosmic force can truly defeat. In the end, the Frenzied Flame serves not as an answer to existential questions, but as a mirror that reflects our own fears and desires back to us with cosmic intensity. Its terrible beauty lies not in its promise of destruction, but in its ability to illuminate the choices we make every day about how to respond to suffering, injustice, and apparent meaninglessness. The flame burns brightest, not when it consumes everything, but when it reveals the light that exists within those who choose to resist its all-consuming darkness. The legacy of the Lord of Frenzied Flame will continue to influence how we think about interactive media's potential for exploring the deepest questions of human existence. Its sophisticated treatment of cosmic horror, philosophical complexity, and moral ambiguity has established new standards for what video games can accomplish as vehicles for serious artistic and intellectual expression. As players continue to discover and rediscover this cosmic horror narrative, each encounter with the Three Fingers becomes an opportunity for genuine philosophical engagement and personal reflection. The choice to embrace or reject the Frenzied Flame remains as relevant and challenging today as it was when first conceived, speaking to timeless human concerns about existence, suffering, and the search for meaning in an apparently meaningless universe. The eternal flame burns on, not as a source of destruction, but as a beacon that illuminates the choices we make and the values we hold when confronted with the ultimate questions of existence. In choosing to resist cosmic chaos, to seek redemption through tools like Miquella's Needle, or simply to continue existing in spite of suffering, we participate in the same fundamental act of defiance and hope that defines the human condition itself. May chaos take the world, some might say. But in the end, it is not chaos that defines us, but our response to it. The Frenzied Flame's greatest achievement may be not in its promise of universal destruction, but in its revelation of the strength, beauty, and meaning that can be found in choosing to build rather than burn, to love rather than destroy, and to hope rather than despair in the face of cosmic forces beyond our understanding or control. And so our exploration of the Lord of Frenzied Flame comes to an end, but the questions it raises and the insights it provides will continue to burn brightly in the minds of all who have dared to descend into the depths of cosmic chaos and emerge with their humanity intact. The flame may promise to incinerate all that divides and distinguishes, but in the end, it is precisely those divisions and distinctions, those individual experiences of love, beauty, and meaning, that make existence worth preserving against all cosmic forces that would reduce it to nothing. The Lord of Frenzied Flame stands as a testament to the power of interactive media to explore the most profound questions of existence while creating genuine emotional and intellectual engagement. Its cosmic horror reveals not just the terrors that lurk in the depths of reality, but the strength and beauty that emerge when consciousness chooses to persist, to love, and to create meaning in spite of all the forces that would reduce existence to primordial chaos. In the end, the greatest victory over the Frenzied Flame is not its defeat, but our understanding of its appeal and our choice to seek better solutions to the existential problems it claims to solve. The cosmic chaos burns eternal, but so too does the human capacity for hope, love, and the creation of meaning in the face of an apparently meaningless universe. This eternal struggle between destruction and creation, despair and hope, chaos and meaning, defines not just the world of Elden Ring, but the human condition itself. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of gaming's most complex and philosophically challenging narratives. The Lord of Frenzied Flame continues to challenge, disturb, and inspire players years after its creation, proving that interactive media can serve as more than entertainment, functioning as a genuine vehicle for artistic expression and philosophical exploration that engages with the most fundamental questions of human existence. If you found this exploration as fascinating and thought-provoking as I have, please like this video and subscribe to Lore 2 RPG for more deep dives into gaming's greatest stories. Until next time, keep exploring those epic tales, fellow adventurers, and remember that even in the face of cosmic chaos, the choice to continue seeking meaning, beauty, and connection remains the most profound act of defiance and hope that consciousness can achieve.